Kavya, we can start.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome, everyone. I am Kalvi Rana and I feel ecstatic to welcome you all on this virtual delight called UBCC 2021. This is the fourth edition of the annual Thought Leadership event hosted by Agility. Unlike the past three editions, this year we had to resort on organizing this event on a virtual platform. But this did not dampen our spirits and zeal to live up to the industry expectations. So before we begin, I would like to thank all our partners without whom this event would have not been possible. Thank you for your formidable partnership over the years. UBCC 2021 will be a two-day affair spanning today and tomorrow, and we will witness two sessions per day chaired by expert leaders who are at the forefront of the cold chain industry. Right after UBCC 2020, the entire world went in a complete state of lockdown due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. The outbreak was not only a humanitarian crisis, but also a hysteric supply chain shock, as it took an immediate toll on the livelihood and economic activities of nations across the world. Businesses were expected to give a quick response on multiple fronts at once. They were expected to deliver essentials to your doorsteps, at the same time maintain their operational viability and also work on protecting their employee safeties. While handling business on usual is already a handful of a task, doing it with the pandemic over your head and half the nation reeling under lockdown, well, that really put businesses on a tough spot. Nonetheless, essentials were still being delivered to your doorsteps on a daily basis, thanks to the profound work of our supply chain industry and our frontline workers. So, on this very note, I would like to commence with the very first panel discussion of the Unbroken Cold Chain 2021, which is on the theme Overcoming Challenges in COVID-19 Supply Chain for India. This session will be moderated by Mr. Satish Lakaraju, who's the Chief Commercial Officer of Agility. Can we please have Mr. Satish on the screen? Welcome to the show, sir, and my heartiest congratulations to you on the fourth edition of this Thought Leadership series. Mr. Lakaraju is an industry leader who, in the truest sense of term, exhibits an undying passion about logistics, life science, and a lot more. We have often seen him address his thoughts and views in forums in India and overseas on various subjects like the unbroken cold chain, infrastructure at airports for cargo handling for pharma, perishable exports, and many more. Mr. Lakaraju, I'm sure that you're as excited as I am to kickstart this event. So So without any further ado, I would like you to please take the charge, and I will see you on the other side.
Thank you so much, Karvi. My pleasure to be hosting the Unbroken Cold Chain's first panel discussion today. But I think before I do the task of moderating the session, it's important for us to recognize the fact that the COVID has created a lot of disruption, not only in the supply chain, but in one's personal lives. And lots of us lost a lot of our close relatives, friends, dear ones, and rest of them. So I would like to take this opportunity to spend at least 1 minute of silence for all of those people who have been impacted. So request all of you to please maintain silence, and let's pray for all of those departed souls. Thank you. It's also important for all of us to recognize that during these very difficult times, a lot of our colleagues have been working around the clock to move the cargo, make sure that we get our essentials at home, and we are safe as well. We have our medicines reaching to us, moving our oxygen cylinders, and doing a lot more. So we thought it's very, very important for us to recognize the frontline workers who are moving the cargo and continue to do that. And in these times of uncertainty, so our due recognition to not only our fellow colleagues from Agility, but from rest of them from the industry. Thank you, Mayur, for putting those together. Now, coming to the panel discussion today, I'm fortunate to have a really enlightened panelist, and let me take the opportunity to introduce the panelists today who are there and who have really been on the front line in terms of leading the discussions on various occasions. I know we've got senior people today, but they have a long profile. But first, let me take the responsibility of introducing Vandana Agarwal, former economic advisor, Ministry of Civil Aviation, who needs no introduction. Can we have her on the stage, please? Mayur, can you get Vandana on the stage, on the spotlight? Madam, good afternoon and welcome to the UBCC 2021. It's our pleasure to have you.
Good afternoon, friends.
Thank you. We move on to Mr. Tushar Jani, who also needs no introduction. Tushar, thank you so much for joining the UBCC once again. And you've taken out your time. I know you're not in the country, but your contribution to the India logistics and supply chain, we will discuss a little later. But I think, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you for inviting. Thank you.
And I know Tushar needs no introduction, but he is the group chairman for the Cargo Service Center. Since we have people from all over the world, I thought it's important that our panelists are also introduced in no order. Keku Bomi Gadgar, Chairman AI Cargo Logistics and Allied Services Company. They have been in the front end helping us all in various airports in the country. Keku needs no introduction whatsoever. Not only being a close friend, but an industry supporter. Keku has been recognized for all the effort that he has been put in, and I know he will share more inputs as we speak. Then we move to Vijay Sharma, who is the head of cargo of GMR Dine. Vijay also needs no introduction. We know that the Delhi airport has been helping us through this pandemic times in many ways. We've seen a lot of action happening at Delhi airport. So we will talk more about it along with Vijay to get an insight of what else can be done. Before I forget, Saurabh also, who is from Hyderabad, which is close to my heart as well as where we started UBCC. He is the CEO for GMR Hyderabad Air Cargo and Logistics Private Limited. Welcome to you, Saurabh. Thank you so much for being on the show. We also have Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur on the show, and Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur equally needs no introduction whatsoever. He has been very active in the industry, writing many articles, contributing very strongly to the industry. So I thought it's important to get his view today as well in terms of what we can be doing as a team in these difficult times. So with this, I would start the panel discussion and give the opportunity. And the objective mainly for today's session is revolving around the important aspect of to discuss not what went wrong, but what can be the learnings out of the second wave affected the supply chain, and how can India still play its importance of being a vaccine supplier of the world despite the current setbacks? Because one is the export aspect, the vaccines and the rest of them, but we've also seen India's role in the initial stages. And I will start first with Madam Vandana Agarwal, who was, in the front end, helping the government, contacting all the stakeholders, and maybe she can throw light to start with on what were the challenges and what India did during these difficult times. Over to you, Vandana.
Thank you so much, Satish. So, whenever we talk about disruptions in supply chains, this is not something which is new to industry. They're well aware of new players coming in, new products coming in, whether these are hard products, these are services related products, etc., etc. So all that industry takes in its stride. What was important for the government of the day at that time when the pandemic started was to recognize what is it that is new about the disruptions to the supply chains that are going to be caused now, in the medium term and in the longer term, and to look to bridging those gaps that are revealed, and also to addressing any policy, tax related changes, etc. So the causality of the disruption, which was firstly of a very different nature to what had been seen earlier. There were multiple lockdowns. There was a severity of the pandemic. The severity was not a uniform severity. In some regions, it was high. In some regions, it was low. The resulting multiple lockdowns were also either regional, they were sometimes national, they were sometimes localized, and they had their own ways of enabling supply chain continuities. And most importantly, these were multiple in nature. So it was not a one-time supply chain disruption. That was also clear to us. And so we looked to working where an end was not really foreseen. So at the very beginning, it was more like a firefighting from when the disruption was first felt with the first set of lockdowns starting in March 2020. And then going forward, it was a little more organized. It was organized with stakeholder consultations for sure, because they are the ones who knew where the shoe was pinching. There was disruption in manufacturing as well. But the second facet of this was that the newness of this was the varied impact. So it was widespread across sectors. So earlier it was regions, now across sectors, but not every sector was impacted. So the policy could not have a broad brush. You had to look to sectors which were more negatively impacted, those which were perhaps less negatively impacted. And we had to cater to certain life sciences sectors, for instance, or the sensors and IoT product sectors, which showed solid potential for growth. And so we needed to adjust to those as well. Automotives, others. So there was an essentiality of the product, if I may use that expression, which was also a very important aspect of the disruptions in supply chains that happened this time, which needed to be catered to, apart from the uncertainty of the longevity of the crisis and how many stops and starts we were going to have to see. Normally, supply chain disruptions have a singular stop, start, and then the matters, the business models, strategies get settled in. The third important factor that we tried to keep in mind in our process was that we needed to look at the HR aspect very carefully. So there was a heavy impact on human resources. There was work from home of a certain kind of personnel. There was working from factories for others, which was necessary. At our airports, it is necessary to have the workforce in place. So we were looking to those as well. And yet, we had to be very conscious of the safety aspects of all the workers, so who were working out of their home settings. In fact, in the second pandemic, even safety in their own homes had become a very important thing because the extent of contagion was so high, so swift. This, and also, you know, when we were looking at the safety aspects, we also needed to bring in the distancing aspects of working, the PPE kit requirements, the contract tracing at establishments, etc. And so there was a mixture of automation, digitization, and digitization not just of a particular enterprise, but across enterprises, across the entire supply chain. So we needed to keep that in mind as well as we went forward. So this required, especially during the downtime, certain amount of retraining, using that time for retraining people. I would say, you know, this, although I may be jumping from one point to another at this point, it required innovative packaging, for instance, something that used materials which we thought were not carriers of the virus. Another very important aspect was that which are the business functions which are very critical, which are impacted, and for instance, cash flows, the liquidity of through the line, through the supply chain, which had to be looked at. Then as people were moving across different vendors or different players in the supply chain, whenever a supply chain is disrupted, what are the tax implications? If it's a global supply chain and you're moving from one tax regime to another tax regime, what are the tax implications of the new regime that would be coming in? The fifth point I would like to mention is that it was also very important to have a certain visibility of where the products are moving in the supply chain. So I think the monitoring mechanisms became a little more important in the in the COVID-19 scenario, where besides the location of the product, the quality or the condition of the product was also of vital importance. And here, vaccines, for instance, or those that otherwise require certain condition to be maintained, perishable, agri-perishables, for instance, that becomes an important factor, which is a very integral then part of managing the supply chain. You know, there's, for instance, a sixth aspect that I would like to touch on, which was the last mile connectivity. And this we discovered, or rather not discovered, but we found the importance of it when we were, again, doing not just the vaccine movement, but also catering to consumer interests, needs, demand in the rural areas, for example. That how do we ensure that the last mile connectivity is there? This was, in the early days, Satish, you would remember that we used to have those check nakas, hang-ups over there, where we needed to make sure that not just the workers, but also the trucks carrying the goods were moving, not just towards the airport, but also at the end, the delivery point, etc. I don't know whether you're going to ask me further questions, etc. So let me, at this point of time, allow you to take in. But, the short sentence that I would say is that it was vital to know what is different in the disruptions this time round, the multiplicity, etc., and then to work to adjust on those. And this is what we did. Thank you.
No, I think you've covered quite a bit of points, the six that you've covered, and you've also touched upon the aspect of human resource, and which was very, very critical. And in one of my articles, I did mention that price, product, place, and people became so critical in the phase one. And in phase two, we've learned a lot out of the first phase, that how critical having people at close to the offices or to the airports became such an important aspect. And I think that is a subject which is very close to Tushar's heart and people. So, and he was in the forefront where at that point of time, vaccine was moving in from Pune and other locations. So maybe I would now move to Tushar to give his insights more in terms of the government's initiative of the Vaccine Maitri program, and CSC's role at that point of time, because over 34 countries had to, where cargo had to move. I know Keku was also coordinating many of these. So maybe Tushar, you would want to throw some light in terms of how you all have tackled the human resource aspect as well at this point of time.
Thank you, Satish. I think so. Madam Agarwal has covered quite extensive to give perspective. The first thing, what our challenge was, how to get people to the work. And I think so that was a big challenge. And not only that, after getting people, how do we motivate them to work? So you'll be surprised what one thing I've learned from this pandemic, that in those conditions, the efficiency at the terminals, cargo terminals, was the highest peak. We were managing probably with 40 to 50% manpower, similar load of shipments which are going out. So that's one thing I think. So we learned quite a bit of how to be efficient. And people started learning that, people started respecting that. I think the major concern was how do I convince those youngsters who are coming to their parents? So I would call them up, and the parents would tell me, आप अपने बच्चे को भेजेंगे क्या? Will you send your kid to work in this current situation? And that was a tough question to answer. And I said, yes. And I said, I'm here. You can send people. So I think that builds spirit. And, we declare them as a hero within the company. And we started recognizing them, putting their pictures and profile that these are the people who are coming to help world. It's not only my company or our people at the airport or my state or my city or my country. We're looking at the world. And I think that that worked very well. People thought that they were helping to the humanity. And I think that was the highest, if you ask me. Humanity was at the highest where everybody was taking care of each other. It was not a single incident where somebody is not ready to help you, be it to drop you, be it to pick you up, be it to give the food, be it to, if you don't have a mask to share, if you have a spare mask. I think that was at the highest what I learned. And most important, I think the people were ready to put in more hours. Um, my kids put in 18 to 20 hours a day to ensure because we were in forefront of medical supply coming in, medical supply going out, and they were ready to put that work. And very happily, and like Satish, what you mentioned once, we did realize that we have to look people now in future. One of the criteria would be, are you staying close to the cargo terminal?
Mm.
So that's going to be one of the criteria. I remember in Blue Dart when we used to hire people, we used to ask them, do you have a motorcycle? But I never thought in my mind that we'll have to ask the other person, are you staying close by? And not only that, we create a kind of a pool. If the people are not well, how to take them to the hospital, be with them. And as I said, humanity was on a peak. Uh, and I wish that we continue with that humanity in our work and in our day to day life, what we have learned from here. But I think so, in terms of the Indian air cargo industry, has done a splendid job. We have come to the call of nature or humanity in the best manner. Uh, I had medicines coming in which had to be clear within 15, 20 minutes. And I know credit goes to Ms. Agarwal. And the custom authorities were custom clearing cargo on email, not even on bill of entry, which was never heard. So you put an email or a WhatsApp to the custom official and they will clear it. So I think that was the best. Airlines came to best to there in terms of, changing the seats into cargo or, cartons going into the seat or in upper beams. And I think that was fantastic too. And in terms of tonnage, it was unbelievable to the kind of tonnage which we were handling in those prevailing conditions. As I said, always one my grief, and I always say into all forum that I wish those vaccines were given to our people also. And I lost my one of the guy who was in charge of the vaccine. Uh, and because he was not above 45, couldn't get the vaccine, and I lost him to the coronavirus. I mean, he could have picked up one vaccine out of those concerned and then give him a shot. He could have survived. But I think that's what we need to learn. We need to identify our workers, and Ms. Agarwal would know. Vannaji knows that my fight to get a railway pass for our people to come, because we were not doctors, we were not front workers. But I think the one thing which we have to learn from this pandemic, the government should recognize the air cargo supply chain as most essential worker, as good as doctors. Because if we were not clearing, doctors wouldn't have been administrating those medicines or those instruments used for the patient. And we were stopped to board on the train. So I think that this is where we need to understand, and I hope government now under Disaster Act, a remand that classified air cargo workers as the most essential, as good as municipal workers, sewage worker, electric worker, or hospital workers. Because we have proven if there was no air cargo supply chain in the world, can you imagine what world would have come to? I mean, we would have lost billions of lives, forget millions. So I think that importance should be given in terms of time to move forward. But I must say, industry together has exemplary work, be it government, be it airport, be it terminal operator, be it airline, be it workers, everybody, be it freight forwarders, be it custom broker, be it those transporters. I know how they bought the goods from the factory. The drivers were beaten up, on the road by the police, and still those drivers were driving. They were begging to the police that we have to take this medicine. So I think so. We have to put that document to add into, and if such thing happens in that document, this is how we will treat the air cargo supply chain. That should be documented, and I demand that to be go into National Disaster Act as the rules and how we will perform. Over to you, Satish. Thank you.
Thank you. Tushar, I know that the manpower thing is something which everyone started to look at, and we are no exception to it. And you rightly said that in the past, people from other cities would come and start working in other cities. But I know now, I myself shifted from Mumbai back to Gurgaon in this difficult time because you want to be close to your family. But surely this is some bit of a learning that I think we all got. And I will move to Keku because Keku also now has a ministerial change happening now with yesterday's government announcement, and he will have a lot of work to do, I guess, in the coming days. But one particular question, Keku, that came to my mind was that your challenges for your airports are much different from the other airports, given that the last mile delivery aspect also was there. And what was those bit of challenges, and how did you, because I was talking to you and I realized that we were looking at using ICDs and CFSs also if required for moving the vaccines. But fortunately, that was not what had happened, and you all managed well through the existing airports. Maybe you want to throw some light on that aspect for all of us to know what was done so differently and so efficiently, because there were no complaints from anyone.
Thank you, Satish. Thank you for having me over. Always a pleasure and an honor to be part of your panel. So let me answer this question in two parts, Satish. If I look at COVID as an event, and if I split it in two parts, let's say phase one and phase two, the challenges were pretty much similar. Okay, and there are 4 points that I will bring to the table that would probably shed some light on how we looked at it and how we, at least in our opinion, were successful in delivering to the commitments that we set out to do. First was the business re-engineering. It was very important for us to re-engineer whatever we had been doing so far. This is not the first disaster that the air cargo industry has faced, and for sure you're going to have more disasters coming up in the future as well. What's going to be important is how you react to the disaster and how you mitigate the options in front of you. The second one was the process simplifications. I agree so much to what Tusharji had mentioned. When things like permissions, where clearances, everything had broken all conventional rules, right? We moved literally out of the box to get things done. I remember the midnight conversations, the midnight SOPs, the tiring times that we had together with Madam Agarwal and the entire fraternity, many of whom are here today, where we were inventing by the minute, if not by the hour, how do we want things to move. There was a clear target. And the target was that we are not going to give more than 3 to 5 minutes to clear cargo at a domestic airport and hand over to the consignees. I, deep inside, said, I don't think it's going to happen. But I know Madam said, no matter what, it is going to happen. And thanks to a lot of you here, we made it happen. We still continue to make it happen. And it worked. It worked. And none of this was ever done before, at least in my living history, and I'm quite an old guy. None of this in history had been done. I don't see this happen in many, many foreign airports as well. So kudos to the ministry who gave the permission, who gave the hand to say, you know what, we are going to make it happen. Let's do it. I mean, I had a compliment on behalf of the industry from no less than the minister himself when he said the entire vaccination delivery process was simply flawless. That's the exact word he used. The third one was the lifestyle disruptions. There were a lot of lifestyle disruptions that took place in this time. And these lifestyle disruptions were something, once again, that we did not prepare for, nor did a lot of our terminals be prepared for. So what are lifestyle disruptions that I'm referring to? Again, very close to what Tusharji had mentioned, which was about the safety and security of our people. One of the points that we made it very clear as an essential services under the Essential Services Act was that we will not close our terminals no matter what, even for a minute, right? There was a fear lurking deep inside me personally as I was taking responsibility for the lives of over 2,000 people. And that was a huge risk on my shoulder. But I had, and I still have complete faith in my team that we would look into taking what I would call calculated risks in our deliveries. The fourth one was identifying and mitigating risks. Like I said earlier, the risks were there. A lot of them were not challenged or not being challenged with us before. So it was very important for us to understand everything that went into this process, right from how will the box be stored, in which hold will it be stored, what is the temperature at which this will be stored, what will be the thickness of the ply of the boxes, what will be the stacking of these boxes one on top of the other, how will they come out, how many people would be needed to carry each box, how will you place it in the van, etc. I mean, this was done in a most precision driven way. And I see this not just in the airports that our company is responsible for, but I see this happen in almost all the airports. And this is something that we should be together proud of. Now, there were challenges to hide and say, you know what, everything was hunky-dory. No, it wasn't. There were times when flights were delayed. There were times when there were missed connections. There were times when we had to get the Air Force or the Navy to step in and do the last mile delivery. So yes, the challenges were there, but the good part was that the challenges were met and the deliveries were made as per the commitments, right? Pre the vaccine movement, I remember there was a lot of talk of having additional containers be ready to store vaccines in case the consignees, failed to show up. And I think probably we have a record of over, I would say 99.8 or 99.9% where consignees showed up and took deliveries right on the ramp. So in short, yes, the terminals were geared up. The team knew exactly what was expected of them. Paperwork was kept down to the barest of the bare minimums. I think being a little sarcastic, I can tell you that Corona did something also positive, was that it changed our mindset to think that you really don't need to follow the rules by the book. If you have the intention to succeed and deliver towards a cause, the options will open up before you. The challenge is only the application of those opportunities or alternatives. That's the challenge, all right? And this is where we are today. We are still in the middle of the pandemic. Let's not make any mistake about it. Whether there'll be a third, fourth wave, it really doesn't matter. What would matter and what is important for us to realize is that no matter how much you are going to be prepared for, no matter if this is going to be a textbook case for an MBA logistics student 3-5 years down the line, no matter what, every day for every shipment, you're going to find something new, which would be a learning. And one of the greatest satisfactions, at least I get in what I do every day, is the learning that I derive from each of these challenges. So with that few words, Satish, over to you. I may have to exit, Satish, if you don't mind. So if you have any other question for me, I'll take it now. Otherwise, my apologies, but I might have to leave a little early.
Okay. We'll see if you have to exit out, then we may not be able to, but we'll hope that you stay on before I move on to Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur, because the only reason that we wanted his views also was the technology part of it. I know that we all have been talking that cargo came out smoothly. It could have been done even for other cargos, because one thing that I've learned in the 17 months is that if India wants to do it, it will do it, be it under any circumstances. And that's gone beyond doubt, because I can only tell you proudly that I've not had a day where I've not learned, or there was not a day when I would have not spoken to any of my pharma customers, and someone had some challenge and we could find a solution. And which is why I think the excitement for me to do this event also comes every year. The question came, should we not do it? And I said, no, we've got the virtual media, and I'm sure people, because to get Vandana last time, we tried the virtual way, I remember, but it did not work. But you see, now we found a way to get her online. So I think that's something that technology could have been deployed better. And since it's a subject which is close to Mr. Mathur's mind also, so I thought we ask him what could have been done better during this pandemic in terms of technology usage as well.
Yeah, thank you, Satish. So I mean, like we've all articulated, it's been a very challenging period, and looking backward at the two waves, it's very easy to find gaps or find faults and say this could have been done better, or that could have been done better. But first, let us acknowledge the good things that have happened in the last 1 year or so. And as far as technology is concerned, I think one of the big wins that we had in our country was, of course, the Covet app. Though there were challenges that we all are aware of, but that has got to do more on the supply on the vaccines and not per se on the technology or the on the usage of the app. So I think that is one very good it's a very good platform that has been created. And so much so that we are now talking about making it open source and also sharing it with other people. So maybe perhaps I could just add on to where we are right now, and if we could somehow find a way of integrating this app all the way to the supplies. So right now, for example, a person when he's trying to book a vaccination slot, and it works very much like a say a portal, a railway portal, and you can what slots are available. But if you can just extrapolate that logic and say, because there is a supply constraint or there's a supply challenge, if we could also have a future view in this app, okay, by when am I expected to get a slot of this particular vaccine? Now, it's reasonable, to imagine that this will be possible only when you have an integration of this platform with the platforms from the supplier side. Okay, so which means when your future receipts, as they are called, when they get integrated, and there could be a degree of uncertainty in on those dates, but when they get integrated, then you get something like a supply forecast or a supply visibility, which could be looking into say a couple of weeks ahead into the future. Similarly, future bookings can create a demand forecast back to the suppliers of say vaccines or other products. So creating an integrated end-to-end digital platform. Now, this is as far as demand and supply of the product per se is concerned, but also you can start thinking about integrating geolocation of the products or geofencing of the transit material itself. yeah, and bring in the complexity of cold chain, and wherein you need temperature monitoring, and you get all these things end to end, because these products, they're moving through various supply chain nodes. They are not, they have multiple touch points. So visibility at each touch point, temperatures at each touch points, uh, availability forecast, supply forecast. I think we need to kind of expand the vision that has been laid out. We are at a good starting place, but there is, from here on, we can really improve and improve the overall experience and management of of the technology that we have created. Right now, these technologies are existing in silos. The cold chain people know what is there, what are the data points they have. The vaccinators have their data points, but integrated digital platform that puts all of it together is probably, my thought that that's one way we can go forward. Thank you for that question.
Thanks. No, brilliant. I think and that was the reason that I placed the question to you first before going to Saurabh, because I know that Hyderabad airport did some bit of work, and there was news about using technology and for vaccine and the rest of them. And Saurabh, that is the reason that I'll have to keep Vijay waiting for some time and come to you first before I go to Vijay, because you've been in the forefront of the vaccine part of it when Sputnik came in, or with the future of Bharat Biotech's exports or rest of them. Maybe you can throw some light in terms of how the technology part of it and the infrastructure part of it at the Hyderabad airport.
Thanks, Satish, for highlighting a very important point in this entire subject of vaccine logistics. In fact, Hyderabad region per se is traditionally a very large pharma and vaccine manufacturing cluster. I'm sure we all are aware that almost 70% of what we deal in terms of our international exports is pharmaceutical and vaccine. And even in that combination, the vaccine has always been a good proportion in terms of the weight, the volume that we have been handling so far. But I think where we actually faced, I should say, real challenge, almost about a few quarters back, was in terms of the sheer volume of the vaccine. It's one thing to handle, say, X tons of 2 to 8 degrees centigrade cargo, and it is second thing, if you suddenly have to plan for almost 3 to 4 times of it, the volume of this sensitive cargo, and coupled with the fact that the stakes were so high. Madam Vandana ji has spoken, and Keku has also spoken about the significance or the criticality of the work involved. If you know that you are handling a very delicate glass or a diamond, how people also have to align themselves. And then I still remember we having discussions, what will be our SOP to handle this thing, as if we treated this as a new challenge. And I still remember Vanda ma'am calling me in the night, late in the evening, and saying, okay, tomorrow we are, in the next week we are starting Bharat Biotech, or you're going to get shipments from Serum. Tell me in detail, step by step, minute by minute, how are we going to handle? It's a very tough question. And Keku was also there in the war room, compiling the best practices and good input from all the terminals to come out with a simple and standardized process. And that was rolled out to all of us. We had exchange of data, we had visibility, we had pre-alerts and we had post-alert. And we all knew if the truck was not there on time, before half an hour, we start calling people, telling them your shipment is going to come in 40 minutes. Where is your truck? And if the truck was there, where is the driver? So the point I wanted to say that we were not complacent with the fact that yes, we went extra mile to make sure that there was nobody who should have any complaint or there should not be any misses, because we took it as a responsibility rather than just another cargo. I think coming on from there, I think when months passed by, and that's when we thought we all started thinking of utilizing technology. If you see in the first few months or the first month, It was all about how we will handle. Later, as months passed by, we started improving ourselves in terms of efficiency, in terms of real-time exchange of data, and then came a slew of technology offerings. People offering integrated temperature monitoring systems, people offering new age cool boxes. We had never heard about those cool boxes. You can ask Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur, the amount of research he has done is like almost like a double PhD on this subject of evaluating the various options of cool box, just to come out with that optimal boxing solution which will meet the Indian requirement, which is very different. We at the start, believe me, none of us were even having a clue of what is the temperature tolerance of the shipment that we are going to handle for how many hours. And we all used to discuss, if it is for 24 hours, what should we do? Okay, if it is 48 hours, then okay, we will do this. If it is 12 hours, let's again start redrawing what we will have to do. I think that was the level of uncertainty, and even in terms of packaging, we used to think about, okay, is it a standard XYZ cardboard box? And when the first shipment of serum came, we all spent time in seeing what is the dimension and how do we all plan and align quickly. So I think those were the fundamental learnings that we all had. And now we are all talking about a new level of technology where we are trying to make it a part of our usual business operations, giving full visibility in terms of the status of the shipment and temperature. There are a couple of initiatives that we have taken in terms of tying up with few leading new tech startups to have an integrated blockchain based solution where all stakeholders can real time get access, not alone restricted to the port of entry or exit, but also on the other side. I think these are 2 or 3 technology elements that we are in the process of evolving, because it's a long journey. You see, even in India, we are talking about 35-40 crore vaccines which has been given, which means that in terms of percentage, we are still less than 1/4. And people have started talking about the requirement, the possible requirement of another booster dose. And still India has not yet started exporting shipments to multiple countries. As you know, traditionally India is an export hub. And, so there is big action which is yet to come up. I should say we have learned, we have all passed the primary in a reasonably decent shape, but very well prepared for our secondary. Coming to the next part of your question on infrastructure, on the hard infrastructure, Satish, I think there was a sudden need for us to increase the sheer space for handling 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. We prepared well, and then Dr. Ravi came and said, no, this will not work for us. We are getting shipments of minus 20 degrees centigrade. So we had to think a little bit more on it, to be a little precise. And then we go and ask him, oh, this is very cold. You please tell me how much is the exact volume, we are going to handle. And I was very happy with great, and this can come only when we work very closely with our customers. Teams came, we sat together, and we successfully handled earlier, I think about a month back, the largest shipment of COVID vaccine into India so far. 3 million dosage in one flight directly from Moscow. Believe me, the best thing for all of us is to make sure that critical shipment does not stop. I think it should not stop anywhere. I think that with that philosophy, we went to the aircraft, we opened all the gates, everything shouldn't stop anywhere. We went to the customs was with us. All the paperwork, any amount of research and due diligence, whatever needs to be done, is done before the flight comes, has been done. So with an objective of it shouldn't stop. But if it stops, and that is where the big question marks, then, becomes a backup plan. And plan B needs to be there in place to an extent that we are able to manage the level 1, level 2 contingency. I think that required a bit of discussion and some pre-investment and planning. So we did. So these were some of the learnings, Satish, and some very good things. But I should say, as far as India and Hyderabad is concerned, the bigger actions for vaccine handling will be there and will come over the next 1 to 2 years.
Satish, allow me to step in, jump the line. And thanks, Saurabh, and congratulate him. we practically handled 747, like with 3 million doses, and with the documentation of the health regulators and the customs done, and the GST payment done before the aircraft even landed. I've never seen a 747 handled like that in 1 hour. In less than 60 minutes, we were out on the road with the vaccines on the trucks. That was the kind of efficiency. Like, people were amazed that how can you handle a charter in 60 minutes and get out of the airport?
Satish, he missed out. It was only 20 trucks.
Yeah. So
No,
that
but
was some experience. Yeah.
No, with Mathur around, he keeps you thinking, because he can call you on a Friday night at 12 o'clock and say, give me a -20 by Monday morning.
Yeah. It was only 11:30 in my case.
I know that, and I think today you rightly said we only knew 2 to 8 and 15 to 25. But today, if someone asks us, can you give me -70 or -50? I think we are ready for it as a nation, not specific to anything. And luckily, that's the learning that we've got it as an organization. I think in 3 days, Mathur asked us something, and I had to get everyone together, get the approvals, and then, said, okay, -20, done, we can go. So brilliant in terms of that learning that we've also learned.
Satish, I'll just make 2 points here on the same thought. Perfect. So when last year in August, July, August, Health Ministry contacted us and said, do you have the requisite infrastructure in place at the airports to handle not just the 2 to 8, but even +15? Because at that time, they didn't know which are the vaccines that would finally come into the fray, which would get approved, etc. So, and then they spoke about -20, they told us about -70, -80 for the Pfizers and Modernas, and so on. We did a complete mapping of every airport, not just in terms of the fixed infrastructure. And we discovered that the polio vaccine actually used to move at -20. So we were, in a sense, in a zone of comfort. Then we knew that Tushar Bhai was planning the world's largest disaggregated pharma center in Bombay as well. So warehouse, so he has that, which is disaggregated into agriculture and pharma separately. Again, all the cold rooms were mapped. And then we also secondly mapped where there could be plug and play. So it's not as though all the -70-degree vaccines that might come in are going to go to every district of India or every farm PHC in India. So we needed to be able to say, okay, these are the main centers at which we will be able to do plug and play. And should something else be needed, we worked with a lot of the containers, different packaging container makers, to see as to how quickly they could innovate with the mobile, carry containers, because not as though we'll be moving 1 million vaccine doses to Ladakh or to the high reaches of Sikkim or Arunachal Pradesh. These would be smaller shipments. So we needed to have that mobility of carriage. The second point, which is very important in all that we did, is that while, as I mentioned, there was a complete uncertainty, lockdowns were stop, start. So we had to work with supply chains that could immediately revive themselves and revitalize and move on. At short notice, you had lockdowns in a particular region localized for a week, 10 days more, 15 days more, etc. But you needed to get them going very quickly again. That swiftness was there. But the fundamental thing is the sustainability of the systems we put in place. 12th of January, we moved the first vaccine doses to 60 locations in India. Even today, the kind of performance efficiencies without specific oversight, the oversight or the monitoring is there, but it's not as though every day we are holding meetings to say, okay, what are the shipments that are going to come in today? So let's plan, let's do this. Which is the truck number? Which is the driver number? Which is what we did initially. What systems were put in place are now ingrained in the workforce. they are now delivering as though this is their norm. That is this performance efficiency. That I think has been one of the most compelling things. And this is pan-India. It's not across one center, etc. So sorry to have just butted in, but
but I think your dream of dwell time was something which now has come true because you brought down the dwell time to hours now.
Satish, if I may say here,
Huh.
India was the only country in the world, and I repeat, was fully ready for distribution of vaccine. I'm talking the world.
I agree.
You take Europe, you take United States, you take anywhere in the world for two reasons. A, the polio vaccination we had already done, so
Correct.
that all infrastructure and software were ready, right? And we were already, like say our terminal in the past and continues to be shipping 30 tons of polio vaccine every day for export. So for us, additional coming 30, 40 tons was a, bayat ka khel. And I remember telling Vanna ji, I said, you bring the vaccine, rest you leave it to our fraternity. We will handle. Not even 1 minute your plane will wait. And we had something like 78 million doses went out of Mumbai. It went like a clock. Those ambassadors who came from all those countries, and they were so surprised to see India's preparedness. And I'm still going to stay one step ahead even today. Give us a vaccine. We will deliver it to every corner of the country. I'm telling you, our industry is equipped to do that.
I agree.
And in fact, one of the demand I made it to Varnaji was, I said, train our people how to give vaccine. We will do vaccine at home. When we deliver at home, we'll do vaccine also. Because we have 2.5 million people, workforce, right? And we're going to go home delivery. So give us that training. Our people will go. It's anyway muscular, this thing. But but we are ready. I mean, I think so. Our industry has, and again under leadership of Vanna ji and all other people, we have done a splendid job in terms of what we had to do, because everybody's talking still vaccine, but a lot of pharma, those remdesivir medicines had to go everywhere. Those ventilators had to go every day. I had Wokat bringing some shipment value 32 crore. And, at Mumbai airport, we cleared in 3 minutes. 3 minutes, including custom clearance right in the COVID time. I can, look at Delhi airport, the amount of probably oxygen concentrator in the world as we cleared probably after China, maybe Delhi would be the one airport in the world would clear.
Vijay is waiting there to be asked about the same oxygen concentrators, because Vijay's discussion always was, and his partners asking, when will the cargo go up? And then Vijay is getting flights after flight and saying, ye dil mange more. So Vijay, over to you. I know you've been waiting for the last 1 hour, but I think before I could ask the question, Tushar already put it from my mouth straight to you. What is that the oxygen concentrators have taught us is that you can give us cargo in 3 hours. Okay, because I know Kamesh Perry is also on the attendees list, and he himself got oxygen concentrators. And thanks to all the airlines clearly who volunteered to bring them on FOC. I think that is the commitment that has made us so proud as an industry, that if required, we will do it free of cost. If required, we'll give it to you in 1 hour. It's just that the attitude, and Delhi airport has really shown what type of attitude it had, because never did you complain or your terminal operators say that we don't have manpower. So I think it'll be good for you to highlight all the good things that have come out of this handling.
Yeah, thank you, Satish Bhai, and good afternoon, ma'am, and all the panelists and experts who are listening to this conference. So my first comment would be salute to each and every person who is there on the ground who is picking up the cargo and delivering it to the last mile. So without that, this could not have happened. Ma'am, I still remember when 9:30 first day, when there was a meeting call, I was on the road coming from out station, and I have to park my car because the signal, I was sure that I will not be getting a signal outside, so I have to wait and see. And after that call, again there was a call at 11. So it is all because of the dedication which has happened really, and not only Delhi airport, I would say that all the airports have worked together. And while Delhi airport was adjudged as a major hub for COVID relief material and other PPE kits, there was a lot of planning actually went into it, and before coming out with the final product. And that was all with the motivation given by the government. I would, before going into the final details of it, I would say that the support from the government, especially from Madam Vandana Agarwal and her office and all the offices, it was tremendous. It is unimaginable. Tushar Bhai just told that there can be a book written on it. Absolutely true. And this can be a case study not only for hazard and disaster management. This is the India is a case study for humanity. It is for giving lives. It is rising the people. It is everything. This case study has to be put in every nook and corner, in every management book, engineering book, or operations book. This has a perfect case. Why I'm saying so is when the people on the ground were there, they were knowing before they were picking because I could see the first Sputnik vaccine which came to India. It came to DCSC Tushar Bhai's terminal at Delhi, and the entire process mapping right from the landing of the aircraft till the final delivery. So this vaccine was ready for delivery in just 20 minutes. All the clearances, everything happened. So in international cargo, making the cargo ready for delivery in 20 minutes is extraordinary. And it is not because of one person working. It is about the entire chain. What we were just looking after was that how the entire chain is integrated. It is unbroken. So whether it is a ground handler, or it is a airline, or it is a cargo handler, everyone and every person in each team, actually all teams were together, making as one team. So that was a really fantastic thing to actually work upon, and that was a perfect, fine, precision execution. Actually, we all set up our cargo partners actually set up a war room at their terminals, central control room, which as a dial level, actually we were monitoring with 24/7 monitoring. And these people were continuously in contact with Keku Bhai and Madam Vandana's Agarwal's office. Everything was perfectly being done. Also, in terms of infrastructure, we were given a task that when the medical supplies comes, when the PPE comes, how this will get country. So what we did is we created a facility, so we divided this into three parts, actually, the entire relief handling. That is, one was the PPE, the first phase which we handled. Then it was a vaccine, and third was when the relief material came in. So all these three, we gave special names to these projects. Actually, we took it as a project, and project for humanity. Basically, the first one we named it for Project Suraksha Kavach. The second, we named the vaccine as Project Sanjeevani. And the third, when the relief material. So everyone linked. So why we did this? Because every person in the supply chain should be aware that this is the main purpose of this particular project, and he is working to that project. He is not handling cargo, he is handling life. When we handled the cargo relief materials, it was in the minds of the people that this has to be connected as fast as possible. So there was the entire minute process mapping was done, discussed with our cargo partners, and agreed with all the stakeholders that when the vaccine comes, when the relief material comes, it has to pass through this particular gate. a dedicated corridor was created inside the terminals. And great work done both by Chelby and Tushar by team actually there. They're just sitting 24/7. So also what we did is another thing which we did is we had our team members deployed on the ground, because each ground handler, airline, cargo terminal operators were doing their job. But there was someone who has to integrate the entire thing. If some person comes in, he needs an A.
I think we lost Vijay because of connection. But before Vijay joins back, Madam, I had one specific question to you and Ketu. The oxygen cylinders, government and customs were quick to change the tariff quickly and make sure that there is no custom duty. But the GST was still a component, and it was not a small amount, it was a decently large amount. Could have been something being done on the GST also, really, because even as of today, there are a lot of people in the world who want to donate oxygen concentrators to a lot of people in the country. And I've myself been approached by many doctors from New Jersey, Germany, and other places. But because either we don't have someone who has an IEC code or can't pay GST, it cannot be delivered to them. So do you think that could have been an area where we could have done better, because we still have phase 3 that or wave 3 that we may look at?
So I would say that there was a very careful coordination, strategic planning that was done through the empowered groups that we have. There is an empowered group which determined which are the products which are in short supply or whose immediateness during the emergency is vital. And these are, again, very, very swift decisions. You know, one of the most important things that I would say is the decision making was predictive, it was prescriptive, it was swift, instant, and it was collaboration. So while there was collaboration among all the regulatory bodies associated with it, whether it is PESO, whether it is customs, whether it's DGFT, whether it's DGCA, you name it. I mean, everybody was sitting under the umbrella of what the health ministry was telling us are the shortages and needs of the medical system. That is the first thing. According to that, the duty structure was changed and incentivized so that those people who are donating something are not brought to bear the additional burden of taxes. GST was also changed in a number of products, but then that's an issue that I think posterity will tell us whether we did right or we did wrong. But to a large extent, even GST was changed on a number of products, again, based on a particular assessment. The second point is that there is a first flush of donations, and then there are a number of companies, a number of organizations, NGOs, governmental bodies, which will continue the donation, irrespective of whether the emergency for those products remains live or not. So that is again another thing which had to be very carefully calibrated. There's no point getting in a lot of materials which are not going to be used. Then there is also a question of whether it is new, whether it is old or reusable, has it been recycled? Then also whether the industrial standards are met. So sometimes we got, for instance, plugs which had a 3-pin which was not aligned to our sockets. There is very little point in sending such equipment to a hill area after so much of hoopla, and then to find it cannot be used. Then you have to look at also another facet, something which is being given by governmental systems to governmental systems, something which is being given by a governmental system to an NGO or a private system. And then you have the private to private. So for all of these, depending upon the responsibilities, the accountabilities of the materials that are being taken, the regulatory system that was put in place, to my mind, was very carefully thought out, very carefully worked with the health ministry, external affairs, who are the donors, for instance, friends, foes. You know, you have to take so many things into account. And we were putting in place very fast-paced clearances. Oxygen, what kind of oxygen? Is it medical grade, industrial grade? Cylinders, are they reusable? Has there been any wear and tear in the cylinder? Could an explosion occur, for instance, if it hasn't been recycled properly? And so a lot of things have to be gone into the thing, and we cannot be just emotional about people sitting abroad who were seeing many pictures, who were seeing many, getting information in patches, dated information, who in all emotionalism were wanting to send a lot of stuff in. There is also a geopolitical reality, but I think the post-event assessment will bear out whether we did well or not. But in short point is, I think we managed the humanitarian assistance very, very well. Thank you.
No, very well answered. And I think this, the reason I ask this is I see a lot of overseas participants from Germany, US, and also on this panel today listening to you. And I was constantly getting this question is, why is our life being made so difficult if we want to send something to India? And I clearly had to clarify in the same thing. So I think thank you for clarifying. Vijay is back now. Vijay, we lost you while you were speaking. But since we are in the last bit of it, and I wanted the closing remarks from all the panelists, what is that one thing that we could do if at all a third wave comes, and what are the critical lessons that we can take forward and probably see? We've done a lot of good things, and I think we can go that without an SOP also, the commitment of the people has changed the situation. But what do you think will be one critical lesson that we could have learned out of these two things, and which we can, implement surely in the coming days? Over to you, Vijay.
Yeah, Satish.
Can you hear me, Vijay?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Satish, one important thing is when we are talking about what is the preparedness for future. So I think the most important part is the agility. So when we have to keep our good practices discovering every day and keep on implementing it on a daily basis. Why I am saying agility, we are working on new assignments or the disruptions come in. So we should be always prepared. And when we do this in a proactive manner, this becomes very important. How to basically proactively react to the situation, and we have to keep the pulse working. So that is very important.
Maybe I'll go to Dr. Ravi Prakash Mathur. What should be the design principle and design elements of a design of a cold chain solution, especially in the light of the pandemic? You did speak in the initial part about open source and rest of them, but maybe you want to throw some more light, which then can be implemented or which we can work on as we.
Yeah, many of the panelists have actually mentioned this already. But I think one of the guiding principles should be, especially in terms of the COVID products or the vaccines, is to keep the number of touch points at a bare minimum. If at all, it has to be just has to be just 2 touch points, because the more the number of touch points you add to the supply chain, you're adding to the uncertainty, you're adding to the variability. And the other thing, like we have discussed in this panel, is that you really have to break down the entire process into the subparts, uh, and then identify the critical elements that go actually in designing, that are actually a part of the supply chain. For example, if I talk about cold chain logistics, then there are things like active transportation, passive packaging. Then there are all these transfers that happen at those touch points. Say between a cold chain warehouse into a truck, from a truck into the airport terminal, from an airport terminal into the aircraft. Are you protected in all those touch points? So identifying those elements, identifying which are the critical ones, which are the constrained ones, and then creating a design which is seamless, and which has the minimum variability in that. So I think with those, like somebody mentioned, what sort of size of boxes, how many doses in that box, all that level of detailing that is really required to create a seamless or unbroken cold chain, as you call it. Thank you, Satish, for that.
Maybe Tushar, before we let you go and close it, maybe you would want to add anything else in terms of the learning and the last thing that we could have done, and maybe you think we did not do.
No, you remember my word air, right?
Yeah.
Agility, which Vijay mentioned, innovation, which Dr. Mathur was mentioning, and third, the resilience. So this is a new meaning of air. And I think that we have to be, let's not limit this ourselves only to this COVID thing. And let's make this as a practice. And, COVID vaccine is just one product. But in my mind, pharma is always, we are dealing with life, right? There is human life. It is not a cargo of engineering components or anything. So we are dealing with global life. And if India has a market share of 20% generic drug of the world, and if India is a global pharmacy to the world, I think so we have to learn and innovate constantly about how do we handle our medical products, be it equipment, be it pharma, be it vaccine. And I would suggest that let's form a group with the pharma companies, supply chain, airports, forwarders, government, terminal operators, and let call it as a innovation group, pharma innovation group. And let us work it out, be it packing, be it trucks, be it passive, be it active, be it infrastructure, be it standards. I mean, I hate to say CIV standard. I say, why not India standard? You know what I mean? If we manufacture the largest pharma of the world, there should be India standard. So I think that let's develop our standard. Let's develop our people. Let's train our people. Let's make our people to know what we have to do. And if we can do collectively that, and I think so, Satish, I would challenge you as agility and as you in individual capacity, at the end of UBCC after tomorrow, there should be a resolution. Let's form Pharma Innovation Group, right?
No, Tushar, my word is there for you that UBCC did not start as a small thing. Our commitment has been there. Saurabh has seen it himself. Mathur has seen it himself. UBCC started for an industry initiative, and trust me, I think that has proved to everyone. And we fortunately work very hard to put these sessions together. And the white paper is going to come out. And I have made note that the committee will be constituted and we will implement it, and we will be happy to present the same in February 2022 at whichever venue we host it. So
Satish,
that's
I, as a support on behalf of ACFI, I'm telling you,
yeah.
ACFI will be happy to support if you need any support on that. I, as CSC, and I'm sure Saurabh, without even consulting him, on behalf of GMR Cargo and my principal Vijay and my principal Manoj Singh and my friend Pratik, all will stand by and we will support you. And I'm saying, let's set up this damn innovation group. Use my terminal as laboratory. Use, Saurabh's terminal as laboratory. Let's use this as laboratory. Let's practice this new passive product, active product. How do we do? Let's do that. And trust me, the kind of innovation which my people on the ground brings out is fantastic. Into handle. I mean, the way new things are coming up, and the people on the ground are the one who are bringing out. So let's bring out these new personalities from the industry. And I'm sure Dr. Mathur will help us. If he has got idea in technology, we're all ready to work with the technology. We map our terminal now. I can give you on mobile the mapping of my terminal to see where your cargo is lying, what is the temperature. Hell with the kappa. I told my people, I said, I don't want to see kappa. You take a screenshot of my terminal. If temperature haywire, you send your letter and finish. Why should get into this kappa business? So I think that let's take to the next level and let India take the leadership. We're all part of ITA, CIV done a great job, but there should be India, right? Who will prescribe how the farmer should be handled. And
Yeah.
I tell our friends like Dr. Mathur to help us and challenge us. I got 6 of them together in my terminal. Unfortunately, COVID came and we couldn't move forward. So I had Glen Pharma, I had Sun Pharma, I had Cipla, all of them. I brought them onto the table. I said, tell me now what you guys want to do. Let's do it together. So
Sure.
that will be my submission, Satish, to you.
No, brilliant. I think you all have my commitment towards making India proud of doing seamlessly a lot of things. And I think we've come a long way even as Unbroken Cold Chain. And my fellow colleagues from the industry also have always supported us in every way. So we will come out with it. And if there is Pharma Aero, you can have India Pharma Aero type of organization with research papers, which we will form. So I think we will come back on that as well. And since we've run out of time, and I know people are asking me that you need to close the session now. So I will take the 1 minute to just summarize in one word that, brilliant view. India stood as a team together in difficult times. We've demonstrated that be whatever challenge for import or export or helping people, in spite of whatever negative publicity that has happened in terms of some of the medias. But I think India has really saved a lot of lives. People have gone out of way. We have unsung heroes, and kudos to all those people who stood by to still keep this supply chain running at all the time. And I now hand it over to Karmi Rama, probably to move on to the next session. Over to you, Karmi.
Satish,
Yes, Vandana.
let me give you one mantra that I think comes out from this experience of 18 months. That is, although India is elephantine in terms of its size and in terms of the pace at which we used to move earlier, I think what these 18 months of civil aviation and supply logistics working in harmony with Air Force, Navy, etc., multimodal in a very different way have shown is 2 double-barreled R's. One is response requirements. What are the requirements? Response requirements, 2 R's. And on the other side, it was rapid response. So that is the mantra. That is the new India for the unbroken supply chains. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Vandana. Over to you, Karmi.
Thank you, Satish sir. Well, during this COVID pandemic, the supply chain did face many difficulties, from maintaining operational efficiencies when the nation was under lockdown to bringing in the workers every day at a time when they wanted to stay home with the safety of their loved ones and with their families. But as discussed by our panelists, the supply chain industry has overcome all these challenges with flying colors and have, exhibited a continuous, the urge of learning and innovations. So now, as this panel ends, I would like to thank all our speakers for joining in and taking out time from their busy schedules today. Also,
Did we lose her?
Yeah, I was just gonna say we lost Carvey there.
Lost Kavi there.
Yeah.
So I think I'll hand it over to you, Cindy, and let Mayur do some bit of other things. So Mayur, maybe you want to take over before the second session starts.
I'm moving all the panelists for the second session.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, and what a powerful first track. I think we're gonna have to be on our best behavior to show the same amount of passion in this track. A lot of emphasis on the human aspect of COVID-19, and thanks again, Satish, for also taking a moment out to remember those the casualties of the pandemic, right? Because you know, those are obviously the people and the reason why we are doing the work we are doing on a daily basis, right? So thanks a lot for taking a moment to do that. Also, for the second track, we are pleased and proud to again have an amazing panel of experts, many of whom have been supporting us in the Unbroken Cold Chain from the start, from the very start of the event. It's a great mix of panelists to have a very broad insight into the importance of airport hubs in shipping of COVID-19 vaccines. So the panel, I will start off to introduce them, starting off with the representatives of the airlines, starting with Julian Such. I think many of you know Julian. He is heading up the pharma product for Emirates Sky Cargo. Thank you, Julian, for joining. Happy to see that your login issues have been addressed and you're able to participate. Good to see you.
Pleasure. Likewise. Good to see you.
Thank you. Moving over to Qatar Airways, Miguel, thank you for joining us and representing Qatar Airways as a senior manager climate control products. So we will be very interested to hear from you what Qatar has done in light of the shipping of transporting of COVID-19 vaccines. Moving on to,
thank you very much.
Hi. Moving on to Halit Tuncer, representing Turkish Airways, Cargo Director for South Asia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Representing the airports and starting off with Mr. Manoj Singh, who is not only here to represent Mumbai International Airport, but also as a representative of Pharma Aero, right? One of the industry platforms that is fostering and encouraging collaboration among the stakeholders in the transportation of vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Singh.
Thank you, Sydney, and thank you for being part of this panel. I think it's a pleasure to be here.
Very, very good to see you. Thank you so much. Mr. Thakur, who joined us from Hyderabad, the Chief Terminal Officer for GMR Hyderabad Air Cargo and Logistics. Thank you for making yourself available and joining us on this session.
Thank you, Sandy. And it's a privilege to be joining as a panelist, the eminent panelist on this UBCC program. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Happy to have you. And joining us very early, thank you, Milton de la Paz, for getting up early, representing Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Thank you for joining in.
It's my pleasure, and thanks for inviting us again. We look forward to an interesting panel discussion. Thank you.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you very much. talking to us about new technologies, solutions, both in cold chain logistics as well as in track and trace, which we all know has become a very important topic in the volatility of today's supply chains, is Jaisal Doshi, who is the Deputy CEO of B Medical Systems. Thank you, Jaisal, for joining us.
Thank you, Cindy. Pleasure to be here.
And last but not least, giving us the shipper's perspective on mostly collaborating with suppliers in logistics, in air freight transportation, is Vilas Rebello, the Associate Director representing Teva Pharma India on today's panel. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Cindy. It's my pleasure.
All right, moving on to the topic of today. So the topic of today is the importance of airport hubs in the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. And we know that that air cargo has and continues to have the critical role in the overall COVID-19 supply chain in the transportation of COVID-19 vaccines. I'm sure all of us have seen those initial statistics reported by IATA and the likes around the number of freighter passenger planes required to move all of the needed vaccines around the globe. And especially in the beginning, with the air freight market volatility had taken a significant hit, a contraction in capacity, in combination with a moving target of the continuously changing requirements in the vaccines, right? So the availability of the vaccines, which vaccine is going to come first, which temperature requirements are there for those vaccines. All of those factors have put an intense pressure and challenge on all these stakeholders in managing that COVID-19 vaccine distribution and the crisis. So for airports and airlines, this of course meant and still means trying to stay on top of all the information around the temperature requirements, the volumes, and presenting solutions around those requirements, as well as, of course, making sure their people are trained and kept up to date with those requirements, as well as the overall capacity. We will also briefly touch upon what the vaccine distribution means for those developing countries, right? So what have the airlines done in terms of supporting that in their outstations? So all of the big airline representatives are here to talk about that today. As I mentioned in the introduction, the COVID-19 crisis has obviously also given a lot of push in the requirements of cold chain shipping, but even more so on visibility and track and trace, right? The supply chain volatility, as well as the critical temperature requirements and security requirements of the vaccines have really given that a big push. So Jaisal Doshi will be talking to us about the solutions that B Medical have put in place to support us in these difficult times. Of course, the collaboration with pharma shippers, as I mentioned, and staying up to date with their needs and requirements of managing those critical vaccine supply chains is essential. And Vilas Rebello will be giving us the perspective of Teva and how they collaborate with their suppliers. But we are starting, first of all, the discussion with insights into the roles of organizations such as IATA, platforms such as Pharma Aero, in bringing clarity into that complicated landscape with continuously changing variables, and what initiatives they have taken to foster collaboration between those stakeholders and communication. For example, Project Sunrays, right? So Mr. Manoj Singh will be speaking to us from both an airport as well as a representative of Pharma Aero perspective. Thank you, Mr. Singh, again for joining us Tomorrow, we will be having a track dedicated basically to speak of collaboration in managing COVID-19 distribution, vaccine distribution. As the representative of Pharma Aero, who are focusing on that cross collaboration between shippers and the air cargo industry, could you comment on the importance of that collaboration in view of COVID-19 air distribution, as well as how do you play a role in keeping all the stakeholders informed and up to date on the latest updates, the latest regulations and information on the vaccines?
To begin with, I have to really be very clear that a collaboration or a success of any hub of an airport or a region or a country is all about being togetherness. And there is a saying, alone we can do very little, but together we can do very, very much. So that's very, very much is Aero, which was formed a few years back. And to begin with how the association works, basically they have a core committee of all the airport heads globally. They discuss about all the innovation strategies or new developments or new process of new vaccine distributions or new pharma product comes into the global distribution chain. Those discussions are being collaborated and discussed, and good ideas are being taken into that particular forum. And those best practices, and if there are issues related, they mitigate those issues which are in the process. There has been some deviations. They look into those ideas, and you have a mixture of every stakeholders into this association. So one is about the airport on the global front, and respective airport, like I represent Pharma Aero for the India region. We have a core committee where, as an airport, you have to have a synergy between all the regulators. The drug controllers are the key players. The custom plays the most important. Of course, our cargo handlers, who plays a major role in this physical distribution of goods, and also our freight forwarders and the airlines. So all these best practices are, to be incorporated. So if you really look into all these aspects, the fundamentals were already in place of getting the CIV certification, GTP compliance. But with this COVID coming in, as on date of 3rd June to 2021, 173 million COVID cases have come across all over the world, and almost around 1.3 million people have died. And all these SOPs were, one was standard pharma distributions, how do we process or the air cargo move. But when this COVID impact, the entire chain of thought process changed. And Mumbai being one of the major hub of the distribution for vaccines, as on date, we have distributed almost around 107 million doses to 92 countries. And almost within our country, we had 42 destinations we have distributed the goods. I still remember when the first process of distribution of vaccine was started on 16th of Jan in India. We were at the tarmac, right at my level, to entire regulators, and we wanted to understand what the process would be. Before that, the whole system and synergy between the stakeholders, especially from the Ministry of Relations, Ministry of Home, Ministry of, from the security point of view, and Ministry of Health, everyone at the macro level were involved, the distribution network, how it should be. So this collaboration between the global associations, the India representation, and the collaborations between the entire regulators from the ministry levels and down the level with the people, all the processes were redefined, and these informations were shared, and all the good practices were all distributed, so that every airport follows the same process, and it could be a customized process also. But we were very fortunate to see that one was we being the hub of the big gateway for the pharma distribution all across Mumbai airport. We had infra in place. We had world largest airport with pharma facilities. We got the first airport to get the CIV certified. It was all 4 years planned. It was not anticipated this political challenge will come, but we were all geared up because we had infra, we had people, we had trained people, and we had a very, very strong exporters who were distributing the pharma all across the globe. So we had one process in place. We shared our ideas to the global platform, and we brought in a new process in place, which was every vaccines and every distribution of pharma was mapped. So we completely went into the digital format, My suggestions would be for going forward all across is we have a very passionate way, the whole ecosystem work together on this distribution of pharma, but we are in silo in terms of IT networking systems of, how are we trying to digitally communicate. But we have certain process on pharma.aero and of course Mumbai Airport working on a digital platform to communicate airport to airport based on the pharma distribution. So we're going one step ahead. And those practices are also like Singapore Airport is also doing along with the Changi Airport as a trial on a workshop. So there are processes which is already in place. The fundamentals are already in place, but we have to move ahead into future, how we're going to do the next step, because today, if you have seen the distribution of 1.5 billion doses have been registered all across, a long way to go. And around 92 billion is still under the consumption with the stakeholders within different countries. So there is a challenge between the distribution, how you're going to do, because it's all a time positive, because you have to be a time constraint and you need to be supplying the goods on time. You have the networking systems and what is expected from an airport to the cargo handler and the forwards, it's all time bound. Just to share with you, in all these distributions and network, because of this COVID impact, there has been much more process faster for airport clearance in terms of other goods as well. So it has a cascading effect. So today, if you see the whole pharma, not only pharma industry, but also other products have also been, got advantage and benefited out of it. So the people have realized this air cargo industry is very, very important, because today everyone is looking for life to take care of the life of people. And we being from the air cargo industry has played a very, very important role. So just to share with you what globally as an association is doing, what as India is doing, and what as an airport trying to give a complete synergy between what is expected and what we deliver.
That's fantastic and great information, and you can definitely see, of course, the sense of urgency is now there, right? And a great point on technology as well, because we've been talking about this, right? All of the vaccine international moves so far are more or less VIP shipments, right? So they are treated with all the care and attention and the VIP services that there are, imaginable. But what if we move on to a business as usual, let's say, or a transactional process whereby we would have to manage multiple flows of vaccines, multiple temperature regimes? There, I can totally see and agree with you that technology is something that plays a very important part, right? We need to ensure that the systems are bulletproof, and that we are not relying on the approval or the notch of individuals, which is of course.
So just to add here, Pharma.aero also, as you mentioned about the project Sunrays, and also they have signed an MOU with the humanitarian logistic service provider who are basically working into the critical shipments for a humanitarian ground. So not only on the CSR, there are other aspects where an associations can really collaborate together for a need of those industry or those people who are in need of these vaccines and other pharmaceuticals. So It's going a long way and it's growing bigger and bigger.
Absolutely, and I think that's critical, right? And we will talk about it later on in the session as well. I mean, it's a challenge already in the developed part of the world, but if you think about the developing countries, of course, the challenges are very different there, and it's a good point that you highlighted there. Thank you very much. It's fantastic to see that passion and that drive to innovate and to actually foster that collaboration. And I think that is something, a good thing coming out of the COVID-19 crisis, that you see that happening on all levels, where initially you saw data sharing going on in between the pharmaceutical companies that were developing the vaccine, right? Which is unheard of and unparalleled, and we've never seen before. But that has cascaded down to all of us, right? Where we see the bigger picture of the need of bringing the vaccine to the people, and that collaborative approach is really fantastic to see. Thank you very much. That's been very, very insightful. And collaboration and in relation to shippers obviously is critical as well, right? Because I think from a shipper perspective, as well as from a freight forwarder perspective, from an airline perspective, that collaboration is key. And we have seen that COVID-19 has basically leveled the playing field, if you like, when we talk about collaboration and collaborative approach with pharma shippers, right? Because we have seen that we as logistics providers can play a critical role and have a lot of information and insights into the moves on the ground and how the world moves, if you like, right? So I think in that sense, we are more on a collaborative approach even today with pharma shippers. So Vilas, I would very much like to hear your perspective on how you have seen collaboration changing over the course of COVID-19, and of course, I'm speaking of collaboration with your logistics providers. Has that changed? To what degree has that changed? How do we collaborate? And how does Teva ensure successful collaboration with suppliers? Talking about, of course, approved suppliers, but how do you ensure those long-term partnerships and ensuring that we are all focusing on the quality of delivering the vaccines?
Yeah.
Over to you, Vilas.
Yeah. Thank you, Cindy. Yes, you rightly said, COVID has changed everything in last 18 months. And what I can understand is that collaboration has made these great efforts. And with collaborating with all the partners, definitely it's working out. So COVID has changed the working dynamics of the people, and they are putting in great efforts to deliver their products to meet the customer needs and their requirement. Here, managing the supply chain with remotely is now becoming a new norm in the industry, and every industry is putting in efforts to meet the customer demand. So this also includes pharmaceutical industry and its customers. In pharma, there are some products which are life-saving, and it's like a vaccine also, which one of the product falling under life-saving. And I can say that it needs to be delivered on time to the patient to save the life. And recently, in many of us have seen and have experienced that the drug which is required by a COVID patient, and I'm talking about wave 2, which recently happened, and it's not that easily available, and the limited stocks are resulting in imbalance in the market. So here, the collaboration which is very much required between the shipper and the stakeholders is essential. It has a visibility. You have a greater scope of delivering the products to the patients and in a perfect way with the required temperature. Now coming to Teva has also done some changes in the to meet the customer requirement in COVID situation. So for that, in partnership with Agility, all efforts are made to ship the products in the required temperature to different modes of shipment. And this long-term partnership has helped Teva and also Agility in having better visibility and control. Both parties can now better understand each other the business requirement. Now, day-to-day operation is one part of aspect, but looking in the long-term perspective, there are ways and means which we can achieve and have a better understanding between both parties. This is not only the service providers, but also the airport, the terminal handlers, and the ground handlers. This also includes our customer who are taking all those charge of the product. Some of the initiatives which I can say which we have taken and what I foresee is the forecasting. Now with limited number of flights as compared to pre-COVID, things are sometimes challenging to ship out bigger and recurring volumes to the overseas market, and helps forecasting plays an important role, and sharing this forecast with the service provider also has a what I can say is a help to them to do their advance booking with the airlines and shipping lines. By the way, forecast is not always 100%, but there is always a last minute change, but this has a visibility, and with that we can estimate the volumes and dates. So forecast is one. The second most important, which I feel, is a lane risk assessment. This lane risk assessment also helps in mitigating risk of temperature escalations, and thus also helps in helping out the theft of the particular lane. Many of times we do not have direct flights from India to US to LATAM to some European markets. During transshipment, there are points at airports, or there are risks of temperature deviation on tarmac during loading, unloading, and sometimes during transfers. And though we need to have a better visibility and what I can say, focus out there, even sometimes there are a lack of cold storage facility to store a temperature control products. Now in Teva we do with 2 to 8 degree products, and also with plus 15 plus 25 degree products. So lane risk assessment can help in reducing this risk by taking alternate measures of storing or handling the products. One more aspect over here is proper packaging solution, which is also required in a desired temperature during the transit. Nowadays, better packaging solutions are there in the market, and yes, there is a cost associated to it. Teva is also using what you can say, primarily a Mumbai airport as a gateway to overseas market. Here, the infrastructure facilities which are there in place, the temperature control facility, the storage, and its better connectivity of flights is helping us to serve better to our overseas customers and also our overseas sites. One more aspect in collaborating is of having audit of the service providers. Here, sometimes whatever we perform during shipment, or whatever the SOPs or standard operating procedures which are there laid out, that needs to be properly documented and must be periodically reviewed. Here, service providers audit also plays an important role in handling the temperature sensitive shipment. This includes vaccines, 2 to 8, and even minus range products, temperature range products. So here, what I can say, Teva has also performed the audit of agility, and whatever shippers and the service providers has agreed is maintained and properly documented. Proper training is given to the staff for product handling. This includes DG product handling, narcotic product handling, the type of packaging that needs to be used. Also, training should be conducted periodically. In this changing scenario, things are changing daily, and that people should be aware of what is happening in and around. This ensures GDP compliance, and I must say over here that this audit was successfully performed with agility, and that is a good part. One more aspect which I want to highlight is consolidation of small volume shipment. This helps the small volume shipments to bundle up with larger shipments to accommodate maybe in an ocean container, and thus reduce in the air freight cost. Nowadays, scenarios are changing every day. Cost is going up. Demand imbalance is there, and then this results in additional costs. So consolidation also helps in reducing the risk of temperature deviation, and having a good amount of small volume shipment. Consolidation helps them to have a good control on the shipment. Here I can again highlight one point of agility of having this PCC center, Pharma Competence Center in Nhava Sheva. This is helping Teva a lot in the long run. I can say for last 6-7 years we are using them, and we are having a more and more consolidated shipments over there. And one last point which I want to highlight on this is about lane flexibility, which is also important in this COVID conditions. And in some European sectors, certain lanes are non-operating because of this COVID things, a lack of flight. Hence, we need to take an suitable action to deliver the product. It may be a trucking route, or it may be some other via media route, but that helps in from the exporter's perspective to move the goods in a right way, in a right temperature to the patient. Cindy, over to you.
Thank you, Vilas. Thank you. Some great call outs there, and I think your information or your discussion is actually the testimony of a good partnership, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure it's music to Satish's ears as well. Thank you so much for bringing that to the table. And I think especially as a supplier, which are many of us in the call here today, the realization or the call out that you made that quality comes at a cost is also one that we like to hear, right? Because of course there is always a cost factor that plays a role, but we also understand, and you understand that that comes at a cost. Having a reliable, high quality partner as well as solutions, that's something that simply is always costing money, right? But
Sure.
yeah, finding a good balance in that, calling out the lane risk assessments, visibility of the shipment, so you can be agile. I know that that we are working with you with Teva on having visibility solutions on your critical shipments, whereby we act on temperature alerts, and having that flexibility, that agility allows, of course, for a lot of best practice or a lot of contingency in the network as well, right? So very, very good to hear that, Vilas, and thank
Sure.
you again for sharing your experience working with agility, but also how in the broader picture you view collaboration among the supply chain partners to be critical to the successful outcome, which is obviously the safe delivery of medicine to the patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy.
And as we all know, in all types of transportation, but also very much in air freight, there is the factor of involvement of regulators, right? Be it airport authorities, customs, Ministry of Health. So Mr. Thakur is going to give us some of his insights and experience so far on the role and the collaboration of the regulators, and how does he view them in the current state, but also referring to what we earlier discussed, when those vaccine shipments are going to become transactional, will become more complicated because of the different handling requirements. Our system set up for that, process has been developed or are in development to deal with that situation of the longer term as well. Mr. Thakur, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Cindy. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. And so coming back, basically, if you see then Hyderabad, it's a pharma hub, and if you see, it's in a vaccine hub, close to around 4 to 5 pharma vaccine manufacturers here at Hyderabad. So if you see, as an airport or as a cargo terminal operators, they play a very important role in having a collaborative strategic approach. So this is where the things will be much more easier. So as a stakeholder, as an airport operator, we become the more strategic player to bring all the stakeholders as a collaborative approach on a single platform to understand the entire supply chain requirements. It could be a shipper, it could be a warehouse operator, ground handler, or the regulatory bodies, as well as and the participating government agencies. So with this, what will happen, you have already heard from the previous panelist and the previous session that we could able to do a seamless transactions. There are couple of minutes we could able to clear. This is what is the tool where with the collaboration, this is what is possible. If you see, we have done as a vaccine hub, we have close to around 10,000 boxes and approximately 400 to 500 tons of vaccines distribution. So on a domestic sector as well as on an international, if you see, per day, sometimes it was 30 to 40 destinations. It was within a couple of hours we could able to distribute across the nation, as well as on the import side also, based on this kind of a collaborative approach. This how this has happened is like the formation of a task force team, which is which all the stakeholders are the members. Basically, as a cross-border, customs plays a very important role. Drug controllers plays a very important role. How best we can see that these seamless clearances happen, how best that these pre-alerts are given to them so that they can assess the goods and give the clearances. Most of the airports have worked hard, and then they have also got this vaccines cleared very faster. If you see, these task force are the basically headed by within the airports with the customs officials. So they were being given with a lot of information. So this has helped us to seamlessly transport this kind of a critical life-saving drugs seamlessly, either from export or import or inbound or outbound. One more thing I just wanted to share with you, like Mr. Vilas was talking about a lot of lane risk assessment, lane flexibility. All this, what we have done with the strategic collaborative approach by flying into the nearest hubs or within the nation hubs, connecting and amplifying the connectivity. That is the beauty of this, for which we have created a product within a collaborative approach as a VaxCor. It's a vaccine dedicated corridor, wherein a shipper would like to plan, all the stakeholders are on board. So it will have a seamless transaction where airport to airport will talk in terms of lot of sync, so that what will happen, any case of an consolidation or break bulk or kind of an infrastructure related facilities which are there at the transshipment at the major hubs, where we can seamlessly transport these vaccines within a shortest possible time, so that the dwell times at the airports, at the transit hubs are being taken care. And both the airports, with this collaborative approach, maybe the regulators talk to the other regulators, maybe some countries have some regulation issues. How can we resolve this? Which will be a very clear transparency, which we can bring in with the collaborative approach with the regulators. Other thing I just wanted to also mention on certain categories where we have developed, we have infused the technology in supply chain, is like what Vilas was also mentioning, that there's a lot of transparency and the innovation is required. So we are also like working with a collaborative approach to bring all stakeholders on board under the vaccine ledger. This will give you an entire control of the supply chain management, where the airports are driving this kind of a innovation. Secondly, I just wanted to also bring all the participating government agencies on board. Will also have a lot of flexibility, as well as the resource planning, which is a major area where the airports as a common user terminals need to plan their resources in a proper way, so that there is a dedicated infra available right from it is moving from the shipper place with its coming touch points to the cargo terminals, as well as again it is flying onto the planes. So that is a major advantage. Other thing is, as you rightly said, today the cargoes are treated, these vaccines are treated, COVID-19 vaccine, as a VIP cargo. Tomorrow, as a process, if you would like to bring in as a normal, maybe we can put it, this particular category of cargoes, maybe under the ACP or the risk management systems, where it is facilitated by the customs as a process itself. We no need to have a dedicated force team, wherein before, like once it becomes a regular normal export out of Hyderabad or any other port or from India, this can be under that category where it will be a seamless, what you call, transaction happens. And one more thing, just wanted to also share with you, at Hyderabad, being this collaborative approach, we could able to literally hear to the lot of stakeholders. We got a lot of insights, because initially when we were talking to them, we didn't have the volume clues. We didn't have any idea about the protocol of packaging, what kind of, whether it could be dry ice, whether it could be PCM technology which will be used. So there where we develop gradually, you have heard from the shippers also now. That's the way we could able to build up the entire supply chain with a collaborative approach. And what will happen once the regulators are in a collaborative approach circle? So there will be a lot of seamless, what do you call, touch points can be reduced. This was also another point, which is more required as the dwell times, maybe the PCM material, which are the solutions which are there, it could be for 12 hours, 48 hours, or some 80 hours. How best we can minimize the storage points while it is transacting, when it is packed in the shipper's place, it should be keep on moving, having a lesser touch points, and then the efficacy of the life-saving drug is maintained. And plus, till it reaches the end patient, we should have a good amount of the solution, the efficacy, the quality of a medicine is intact. So that is what is the benefits and the collaborative approach what we would like to share with you. Plus, another thing is we also created to handle these vaccines. We had a task force teams where are the dedicated SOPs which have been designed, under which other stakeholders will also be a part of it. Right from the critical check controls have been monitored with the key flow matrix people, so that these vaccines are seamlessly transported. So apart from that, even this PCC, we also have at Hyderabad the Pharma Competency Center, which is the inventory of the active and passive solutions, which is readily available for the shippers, so that it will not delay the times for the connections. Any given point of time, these inventories are available. We also have created, through a collaborative approach with the insights, the container yards also, which is a mall of all active and passive solutions just in time available for transportation of these kind of COVID vaccines. And just to share you, like within couple of minutes, even the international, that was literally a game changer in the Indian scenarios to get it clear. Within a couple of minutes, the international imports, maybe other airports are also doing it, but this was a game changer under the leadership of Madam Vandana Agarwal, and this was entirely monitored. This was been very structured through a digital platform. We were monitoring through the WhatsApp every shipment which is going to every airport, and on the which surface mode which is going was all in under the control. So this has given a lot of learning to make more stringent as an originating hub, and also to give more seamless transportation by collaborative approaching to the nearby hubs, by integrating other regulatory people also, so that the things will move much more faster. Thank you. Over to you, Cindy.
Thank you so much. Great insights there, and I think that of course we will hear other insights from other airports and airlines as well. One of the things I noted down is yes, that leverage of best practices, and maybe Manoj from the pharma aero background has some information, some insights to that as well, right? So how do airports and airlines globally collaborate to create a common standard? But also, again, the criticality of the collaboration between customs, Ministry of Health, airport facilities, right? Because it's all one chain of events, right? That all these systems and people need to talk to each other to ensure that smoothness, clearance and release of critical shipments. So that collaboration between those critical regulators is obviously vital. And one other thing I noted down here, and you mentioned it, Mr. Thakur, which was very powerful, that of course collaboration is also the willingness to share information, right? I think that is where it comes down to. We all rely on information. You mentioned we had no idea at the start of the volumes, of the packaging requirements. So the willingness to share information is obviously a key prerequisite for successful collaboration, right? So great information, and thank you very much for highlighting that. And I'm sure again we will get some insights how that works on other airports as well in our next session, which we have, which represents a lot of the bigger airlines as well as airport representatives. we have seen, especially in that beginning, and again, you have also referred to it, right? The information flow around the vaccine and the vaccine requirements, the volume, the temperature storage requirements was very volatile. It was a constantly moving target. So for airlines and airports, how to keep on par with those COVID vaccine developments from a solution point of view, infrastructure investment, training, and teams, not only for the hubs, but also in remote locations. That has been, I'm sure, very, very challenging to stay on par with that and to develop solutions around that. So we are talking now to Julian, first of all, representing Emirates Cargo. How have you managed that situation, Julian, within Emirates Sky Cargo? How have you dealt with that intransparency of information at the start, right? And making the investments in the right locations, in the right temperatures. How have you dealt with that? Can you share some experience that you
Sure.
have gone through, and what is your outlook as well for the future?
Yep, sure, absolutely. Hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, with Emirates, we had a quite considerable infrastructure in Dubai to begin with. However, we saw that things were going to increase. So we announced we've actually expanded our facilities in Dubai, for example, by another 2,600 square meters of temp control, both 228 and 1525. We also keep developing and growing our fleet of cool dollies, which of course, Vilas mentioned, when cargo transits various hubs, there's a potential risk. So we're always developing our cool dolly fleet, but also externally our farmer network stations. So we over the last 4 to 5 years, we've been heavily working together very closely with our ground handlers, and some very specifically, we've been involved with the design of a fit for purpose farmer facilities in various different destinations around the world, and we continue to kind of develop that. As a number of people have said already, from a packaging point of view, of course, there are so many different types, right? And especially when you look at lane risk assessments, you look at where this product is going and do the various points at which the cargo is going to transit and end up, have the right infrastructure. So what we saw is very close discussions, tripartite discussions, particularly with both shippers and forwarders, looking exactly where their product's going, what the infrastructure is, and potentially the various different packaging solutions. What's quite interesting, of course, as an airline, is that we move all the different types of packagings to across the world. So we actually have quite a lot of very good data, which shows us which types of packaging work quite well on various different O&D pairs. So for example, we're working quite closely with a vaccine manufacturer that have a passive solution, which they kept their vaccine in, but to certain destinations, they wanted an overpack, let's say, right? So we worked closely with them and put their solution in another one to make sure when it got to that destination that product was kept at the right temperature, right? So one of the big things coming out of that is what we've seen is that communication between both ourselves, our forwarding partners, and the actual shipper has exploded, really, to be honest. I'm constantly having calls with them to discuss it. And as Villa said as well, on the forecasting point of view, right, that's been critical because, keeping these aircraft in the air has been very challenging, and we have to make sure that they're flying around as full as possible. So forecasting is critical for us to make sure that, first of all, we have that space available for them. And so what we did in combination with that is to make sure that we have priority for these vaccines, right? We set that up from a start. What we also did was implement internal handling codes, right? Special handling code for COVID shipments, not only vaccines, but also some critical pharmaceuticals that were there to help, especially alleviate with what people were suffering with. So that started at the point of the booking stage, right? So as soon as we implemented that handling code at origin, it would make sure all the various trigger points throughout its journey with us would make sure that it was kept in the right temperature, it was going on the right flights, etc. And that was all coordinated with our control tower here in Dubai. I mean, there are various case studies as well, that not only working with forwarders and shippers, but we also joined in, governments, ministries of health would join conversations because they were also very concerned about when it got to destination. And we saw all kinds of interesting things happen. We had a call the other day, and as I mentioned, on various points, especially when we were delivering vaccines into Africa, we saw that they had cool trucks just came straight onto the ramp, collected the vaccines direct from the aircraft, and left straight off the ramp, and went directly to that government facilities. So a lot of countries have been thinking quite carefully about how they need to do, not only from the aircraft to their facility, but also that last mile as well. With that in combination, we created a vaccine alliance with ourselves, IHC, DP World, and Dubai Airports. And in combination, we all have various different infrastructures around the world, predominantly in developing countries, right? So our focus was to make sure, along with our network, which is very strong into Africa, Middle East, Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, we're able to get these vaccines into those markets where they're needed most. We've also been, as I'm sure you've seen, we're developing our network. We're increasing new destinations every month, increasing the capacity. But to when it comes to kind of looking forward and the future, we also have to remember, right, that all pharmaceuticals that we move are really important. There are patients suffering around the world from various diseases, and we all play a critical role in making sure that medication gets to them. So one thing we haven't forgotten is to make sure that we've kept that capacity for all the existing business that we had. Also, when the pandemic hit, a lot of airlines, including ourselves from day one, we all aircraft apart from the freighters were grounded. We very quickly got them back up in the air and created our PAX freighters and stuff. But there were a lot of airlines that weren't able to get capacity into the air so quickly. So we also were seeing additional business, and we had to make sure we had the capacity for that. So I think for us, the pandemic has sped up a lot of projects that we had in our pipeline that we had to really rush forward to make sure that they were implemented so that we could cope with this. And also, working with our partners around the world has really been critical to make sure not only it's collected at origin and it's looked after in our hub, but it makes sure it gets to destination as it should.
Thanks, Julian, and great call out there on the fact that that obviously it's not just about COVID-19 vaccines, right? I know that's the topic of the conversation and has been on the forefront, but yes, as you rightfully said, we should not forget about all the other medicine and all the other pharmaceuticals and all the PPE and everything else that still also needs to be delivered, right? So it's on top of that.
That's right. Medicinal drugs, respiratory drugs, the volumes have been huge, of course, because that's helping patients, come to terms with COVID and helps them through it.
Absolutely, and you mentioned control tower in Dubai, right? One question I had for you, Julian, is in terms of your people, right, and training and make sure that they are staying up to date with everything that happens, especially in the beginning. I think it must have been very, very challenging, right? Because again, the goalposts kept on moving, the requirements kept on changing, the volumes. There was no real information. So did you within Emirates have a specialized team dealing with vaccines alone?
Exactly. Yeah. So we created a COVID task force team, right, from actually all different aspects of the business, right? Not only operations, but also in capacity control, and also in the commercial team, being myself, but also in our control tower. So our control tower is there permanently. However, we dedicated a team 24/7 to make sure that they were on call for all these changes. When changes happen, it's not just at origin, let's say, where shipments need to be moved about. We need to make sure they're connected through Dubai correctly, to make sure we have the capacity with our cool dollies and all these little things that go in combination with each other. We had a dedicated team who were there 24/7 to help with that.
Great, very good, very good. Thanks a lot, Julian, for sharing your experience and how Emirates have dealt with first of all the initial challenges, but also how you are preparing for the future. Thanks a lot for sharing that. And yeah, of course, Miguel, we would like to also hear Qatar's perspective on that. And I've been to Qatar. I must say the hub is very, very impressive. Your operations there. But please, if you could shed a light on how you have dealt with the initial COVID-19 crisis, the effect on capacity, the developments on your infrastructure, your people, but also the outstations, right? Let's not forget that, because again, we are not only looking at the developed countries, we are very much also looking at the future and how are we going to make sure those essential vaccines and supplies are delivered to the developing countries as well.
Yes, absolutely, Cindy. Thank you very much. And indeed, I can only echo what my predecessors have said already on one word that I think that is across all stakeholders, which is collaboration. It has been critical for this COVID-19 crisis, different levels, since from the planning, having a good planning of our capacity and our infrastructure and the capabilities of our network, having constant communication between all stakeholders, not only internal but also external. As Julian rightly mentioned, those tripartite meetings or engagement between us, the forwarders, the shippers, but also including ground handlers, has been key and has been critical to make sure that on one side the vaccines were moving as planned and according to the specifications, but also to make sure that the rest of the commodities were also moving as it was expected. Because of course, apart from the rest of the healthcare products, you have your perishables moving, food supplies. You have other commodities that still need to keep moving around the world. So we need to make sure that all the rest of the cargo and the business is moving. That's for sure. Then have a clear and good execution of the shipments and constant monitoring. Similarly to what was mentioned previously, we developed here in Doha a COVID control tower that is also part of the wider integrated operation center, or IOC cargo, where they are monitoring shipments. They're monitoring the vaccines at shipment level, at flight level. There's intervention of route management, network planning, customer service, operations, commercial as well. So all eyes are on the COVID-19 vaccine shipments to make sure that they reach the destination as expected. So there's been a lot of streamlining of processes, developing clear guidance to the teams, extensive trainings that we have rolled out, not only for our teams here in Doha, but also in our network, making sure that everyone is clear and is aware of what is expected, what is coming. And one thing that I would highlight is as it was mentioned already before, that the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, has allowed us to push forward or fast track several initiatives or projects that we had pending. One of them would be just before the pandemic, we just got our IATA CAV certification. So the rollout of all the quality agreements and improvements that we had laid out to our pharma product here in Qatar Airways has been fast-tracked, and there has been that support from executive management to move forward with several projects. That has been great. And as well, yeah, I mean, I need to mention the increase in the dry ice limits, right? I mean, I think traditionally from all the airlines, we had very limited capabilities to transport dry ice. And this has proven that via extensive risk assessments and management of the dry ice, doing our own measurements here in Doha with aircrafts filled with dry ice and see how the sublimation rates affect the CO2 and the oxygen in the cabin. So we have been able to provide or to increase significantly the dry ice quantities that we can transport in our fleet. We have recently transported vaccines with in excess of 10 tons of dry ice, for example. That's something that's prior to the pandemic we could have never done, right? So I think that's close cooperation between the manufacturers, the customers, our freight forwarders, our dangerous goods team, and also the Qatar Civil Aviation, which has allowed to increase those limits. It's really remarkable. So there's been plenty of initiatives and projects that have been possible, if we want to say, thanks to the pandemic, although it's a bad scenario. But always when crises occur, there's opportunities that then we need to grab and we need to exploit them. On the network side, as you mentioned, we had extensive conversations and alignment between our network handling partners to understand what are the capabilities, what would be the backup plans should the demand for additional storage rise. Until now, it has been pretty much stable, but we can expect that currently and in the coming months, there will be a ramp up of exports from places like the US or Europe into third countries. Once those regions have already reached a high level of vaccination of their populations, we can expect now those exports to start or continue. And we are very proud as well to be one of the initial signatories of the COVAX facility project, moving vaccines donated by, let's say, the wealthy countries to the less wealthy countries around the world. So we are very happy to be part of that project and work closely with UNICEF and different forwarders selected to move those vaccines to the places where they need it most, right? So
definitely,
yeah,
and that brings obviously a different dimension to the work that we do, right? I mean, we know everything around pharma or COVID-19 vaccines is of course bringing an extra dimension to our work because we know it's for a patient. But in order to be able to deliver it to those patients that are not in financial capacity or what have you to, to actually obtain the vaccine, because we tend sometimes to forget that. I spoke to a colleague in Vietnam the other day, and there they are completely not aware yet even of is a vaccine going to come and when, right? So it's not even a matter of do I want to take the vaccine or not, right? Yeah. So, it's on the way. Very good. Very good. It comes from a very reliable source, right? So, no, but definitely that humanitarian aspect is something that is critical, and I think also probably that has played a key role in that collaboration or collaborative approach that we've seen over the past year, right? Although I'm always wondering with the airlines, right, how much of collaboration is actually there, right? Because
well,
of course
thanks to the COVID again, and I think it was mentioned before by Julian, we have significantly increased that cooperation between different stakeholders, right? And not only with the freight forwarders, but also with the shippers and also with authorities, with different entities that before perhaps the conversations were not that often or that regular. This has allowed for these further discussions and engagements between different parties. So definitely the work that has been going on in several conferences along the years of collaboration and close collaboration and sharing information transparency, I think we have seen finally that come to fruit, right? So I can say from our side that that has improved significantly, yes.
That's great, and it's all for the greater good, right? And congratulations, also Miguel, on signing up on Pharma Aero, right? I think that's also
Correct.
a great step and a huge step forward for everyone in ensuring that we are all aligned and we are all working for the same cause, right? So congratulations on that, Miguel.
Thank you very much, Cindy. That's a clear sign of our commitment to quality. I mean, we haven't stopped working on improving our processes and and our infrastructure investments in reefer trucks. Here in Doha, we use reefer trucks for the run transportation. So even during the pandemic, we have increased our fleets. So we don't stop. We keep working on improving the quality of the service that we offer, and we are committed to as well help the industry to further develop standards and come up with the next phase of regulations as well. So we are very happy to join Pharma.io, and some more announcements will come soon on associations that we will participate in. So really, really happy with that.
Exciting times. Thank you very much, Miguel. So Khalid, you're next. It's going to be a challenge to beat to beat those two before you, right? And there is no specific ranking, or there's no reason why you are the last, right? But I'm sure we have all the confidence in you and bringing the perspective of Turkish to the table as well. The floor is yours, Khalid. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Seeing Julian and Miguel talking felt like I was talking. So we took also similar steps as the world's largest, one of the largest airline. So being a fast responder to this pandemic was only for a few airlines. So we also increased our market share a lot dramatically in this period. So we already had a strong pharma product on hand, but during the pandemic, we created a new product for COVID vaccines with every perspective, including new handling codes and separate task force, and carried out operations not only to busy hubs, but also to especially to the remote locations in developing countries where the COVID vaccines are much needed. So we introduced SLAs with our partners in these destinations to keep the transportation intact, and it worked very well so far. Also, we introduced these PAX freighters with cabin loading, and that also helped us cope up with the demand a lot. We built extra cold storage area in the hub to accommodate the vaccine flow. We have been also in contact with IATA, WHO, UNICEF, Pharma.io, and other stakeholders. Join the webinars, be in touch, and regularly to keep us updated and prepared for the new developments, since it's still not very regular, and all flows and regulations are changing still very rapidly. So being in touch is very important in that aspect. We also recently reached 100 million doses mark for COVID vaccines. So over 100 million doses already carried with Turkish cargo so far, and still counting, of course. And we are carrying the vaccines for Turkey itself. Most of the population is already vaccinated. That's something good that we are helping. In terms of what will happen when COVID vaccines become more transactional, probably top managements and governments officials won't evolve that much, but we will continue to apply the same procedures, precautions, and service levels will remain intact. We are also preparing to move to our new Istanbul airport from the dual airport structure. We will move to the new airport. All cargo operation will be handled over there soon. So from acceptance to build up and breakdown, we will have a separate area for all processes for pharma and also COVID vaccine products. Mr. Vilas rightly mentioned the risk of tarmac exposure of vaccines. So even though weathering condition in Istanbul is not very harsh, we will have more than 25 cool dollies to transfer all kinds of temperature controlled pharma as a standard service that we will give in the new airport. So all aspects will be covered, and as there are many more vaccines regularly moving rather than the COVID vaccines with us, COVID will be a part of the mix of our product going forward. So I believe air freight and pharmaceutical industry, along with forwarders, airlines, regulators, authorities, and all stakeholders showed great effort and acted as a big team through the pandemic. That shows from the start. So I'd like to thank each and everyone who put all the efforts to push the limits to save the lives at stake. Many lessons learned and many improvements done on fast track during this time, and I hope this will be a good example and light the way of how our industry can develop and become more simplified and efficient going forward. Thank you very much, Cindy.
Thank you very much. That's really really interesting, and it seems that for you the challenges are not over, right? With moving to a new airport, that's going to be a major new challenge for you. Khalid, I know that, I mean, from experience that Turkey has always been very much on the forefront of pharma developments, right? When you think about serialization initiatives, and Turkey has very much always been a leader in that. Looking at it from this perspective, and we will be talking about technology in our last session. Can you shed a light maybe on what Turkish have done in terms of technology? We've been hearing a lot about, of course, infrastructure, people, but I think we are all finding a common ground that technology is the way forward, right? In terms of managing the business. Is there anything specific that you guys have done or developed or collaborated with suppliers on the technology side?
Yeah, I can give few examples. First came to my mind is our WhatsApp chatbot. During the pandemic, we started using our phones more often and communicate through the phones and computers a lot more than usual. So we introduced a WhatsApp chatbot where you can track your shipments and get our latest schedule. And Julian also mentioned our schedule still continues to change every day. We cannot even follow up which flight number, where, and how many destinations we have right now. It is a hard question to answer to anyone. So this WhatsApp chatbot is the best way to instantly get the latest schedule and latest update for your shipment that was commonly used and being used in India also by our stakeholders. Other than that, we introduced this web cargo web portal that also forwarders can book their shipments, compare prices and connection times with other airlines, and book their shipments through that portal in an easy and convenient way. So these two, I think, is very new and brought a lot of new development, I can say, in terms of technology.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It really sounds interesting. Last but not least, and I hope you've had your morning coffee, Milton, right? It's great to have also some perspective from the US, giving insights on how the situation is over there, and specifically, of course, what you have done as an organization to stay aligned with all the developments in terms of infrastructure, teams, training, anything that you can share with us, best practices, that would be appreciated, Milton.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Cindy. And first of all, just want to give special thanks to Satish and the whole Agility team for once again putting this together and inviting us to participate. We look forward to the time we can go back to India and do this in person.
Absolutely.
But so thank you all, your team. You work so hard, and I appreciate it. So look, our perspective from the U.S. is very, very different than what we've been hearing from India in the Middle East. Most of the vaccine distribution within the U.S. was manufactured in the U.S. and so the whole distribution scheme was quite different. But the theme we've been hearing consistently throughout the morning, and Miguel said it well, is the collaboration theme. And Miguel and Julian were both talking about how COVID accelerated, for example, projects and things like that. Let's talk about the collaboration in that context. One thing that COVID did, it really underscored the importance of collaboration. And I'll give you an example. The first thing we did as an airport, as you know, we don't operate the businesses. We orchestrate things in the airport. We don't operate it. We provide facilities and infrastructure and things like that. But before COVID, and again, working with you guys at Agility and a lot of people on the panel here, we wanted to put all the pieces in place first. So we became the second airport in the U.S. to be a CEIV pharma community. We also invested in a data sharing, a cloud-based data sharing platform. Ours is the Nalian, engineered and empowered by Nalian. So we got a cargo community system going as well. And we're the only airport in the U.S. that has both CEIV community and a cloud-based data sharing platform, so we can be transparent, share data. We have a truck booking slot to expedite recovery time, so trucks are not waiting and congesting the truck courts. And so we wanted to put all these pieces together. This is what well before COVID. We've been talking to Thakur and his team, and Manoj and his team, and shippers out of India to develop pharma lanes between Hyderabad and Mumbai and DFW, for example. And then COVID hit. And the one thing that we found out that because of COVID, the collaboration, the sense of urgency was heightened, and everybody was talking to everybody, which is a good thing. The first thing we did was we put a task force together at the airport. It consisted of our myself from cargo, our government relations person, our head of the Department of Public Safety, and we had some conversations with all the big stakeholders. That is the Texas Department of Emergency Management, Joe Biden, President Joe Biden's team around Operation Warp Speed, and we kind of went to the table, open-minded, and said, what do you need? What are you looking for? Here are our capabilities. We have a cold chain facility on the airport. We have CEIV, pharma status, people who are trained and validated in handling pharma. We have all these relations. How can we help the effort? How can we help this humanitarian effort? And that's how we started. And they were quite open. People we had never talked to before from government agencies at the federal and state levels were very, very open, and we were able to play a part. So we want to bring that same sense of cooperation and collaboration to everybody in India to say, how can we make things better? How can we improve on these supply chains? We heard people talk before about reducing the number of touch points, and we've done that. We also joined Pharma.Aero to represent the cargo community and the stakeholders at our airport. So from an airport perspective, again, being at DFW, we just are trying to align with everybody, like different stakeholders on this panel, for example, from other airports to airlines to shippers themselves and manufacturers, to make sure that we're supporting the process. And it's been very effective. There's still a long way to go, but we do have all the pieces in place to be a supporter and significant player in the movement of these very, very time and temperature sensitive goods, not just the vaccines like you guys been saying, but all the other pharmaceutical products. I was listening earlier. I like Tushar's idea of a pharma innovation group. And we'd like to participate in that. Again, like I said, we got a lot of information, and it's been helpful to be a part of Pharma.Aero. It's very informative. There's a lot of good studies and white papers that come out of that informed us on things we had to take care of at the airport. But at the airport, at least from the U.S. perspective, there's no one player that's going to raise their hand and say, yes, I'll make all these investments. It's the airport that's really driving the investment. We're setting up the infrastructure. We're investing in the technologies, this cloud-based platform and all these apps to put everything electronically, all the transactions electronically, the CEIV pharma training. So we're the ones that are doing all these things, but it's for the broader ecosystem. It's not just about the airport, and it's not just about cargo, but it's about human life and contributing to a great humanitarian effort. And on that note, when you talk about how collaboration was really, really heightened, the U.S. Indian Chamber of Commerce came to me at Dallas, and they said, we're shipping ventilators to India. How do we do this? And I got to really thank our friends at Qatar that stepped up and shipped them all the way into India free of charge. And there was millions of dollars of ventilators free of charge. But then we also reached out to others, you know, like Emirates and FedEx, and they all participated. They all, you know, had a very open mind and very generous and very gracious about it. So yeah, COVID vaccine also heightened the sense of urgency around the collaboration, but has to continue. We're here open and willing, like you said yourself, Cindy. It's about willingness to share data, right, and willingness to share best practices, and we're open to learn and share as well, and to really play the best supportive role we can play. There's a lot of great airports in the U.S., as you all know. You all fly to them and operate them. But we have a dedicated cargo team, which a lot of airports do not have. We hired more people that are experts in cargo, have career cargo backgrounds, and we're making investments. We have a leadership at the airport now that's very open and willing to invest in cargo infrastructure. We have new projects under development now, and we're looking for you know, the best of the best to operate in these facilities. So again, I just want to, you know, open kimono here with everybody, just say we're happy to work with all of you and accommodate whatever we can and make the right investments to have this really seamless, collaborative supply chain where we mitigate all the risk and the temperature excursion risk as well. So thanks again. Thank you, everybody, Cindy, Satish, everybody at Agility. A wonderful panel, and I appreciate you inviting us.
Very welcome, Milton, and thank you for your insights. And it's absolutely encouraging to see and to hear how everybody is willing to collaborate and is positive about the future in terms of continuing that collaborative approach. And if that's one good thing I would say that the COVID crisis has brought about, right? So fantastic to hear that, and I'm actually personally really looking forward to seeing that Pharma Innovation Group come to life, right? It would be fantastic to you know, put all those brains together and best practice sharing, airports, airlines, regulators. Fantastic idea. I second you on that very much. Thanks, Milton. It's appreciated, and thank you for getting up early for us. And again, hopefully we will be able to meet in person next year in India, right?
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Last but not least, certainly not, is Jesal Doshi, who is going to talk to us about some innovative solutions around packaging technologies in terms of tracking and tracing of those critical supplies in the network. The floor is yours, Jesal.
Thank you, Cindy. First of all, thanks to Cindy, Satish, and the entire Agility team for inviting me to speak on this panel. Before I talk about technology, a quick word about B Medical, since it's not a company that's known to everyone. We are actually the world's oldest and the world's largest vaccine cold chain provider. We are based in Luxembourg since the last 40 plus years. And pre-COVID, our solutions have helped vaccinate more than half of the world's children, including in some of the remotest places on Earth. So whether it's the mountains of Afghanistan or the Amazon forest in Brazil or Congo, we are present everywhere. And at the end of last year, we received a personal invitation from the Prime Minister of India to start manufacturing in India. And I'm very happy to announce that we have already commenced manufacturing in India in a short span of less than 6 months.
Congratulations. That's great news.
Thank you, Cindy. So just moving on to the topic, because it's such a vast topic, I'm going to focus on some of the macro trends. And of course, I'm happy to follow up subsequently with anyone if they so desire in more detail. One of the first things I think is COVID has brought about a sea change in the world of temperature controlled pharma air logistics. And whilst a lot of innovation has already happened, most of it has been to respond to the immediate challenge on hand. For me personally, I think the most exciting aspect is that there is a lot more innovation coming, and I will try and shed some light on them today. Now, a lot of attention has been paid to the sheer volume of doses transported by the air cargo industry over the last several months. But I think the most meaningful impact has actually not been there. Rather, it is the range of different temperature payloads that the industry has transported, B, the significantly higher focus on maintaining the right temperature across the entire chain, and C, and perhaps most importantly, I think the switch almost overnight to end-to-end shipping, meaning it is no longer an airport-to-airport shipping, but really from the pharmaceutical manufacturer to the end user in many cases. And all of these demand-side factors, alongside several new technologies, has led to an explosion in both cold chain products and in traceability solutions. I think on cold chain, the industry has rapidly responded with innovations, and the primary focus has been ensuring the right temperature with high autonomy. However, when you think about the next wave, most of this, and hopefully the panelists will agree, has been what we use today is single-use, mostly environmentally unfriendly technology and packaging solutions. And I think the next wave, as we are already beginning to see, is focusing on sustainability, because getting the vaccine, at this point of time, getting the vaccine to people who need it immediately has been the immediate focus. The second key trend, I think, also now that we are shipping much more to developing countries, as was mentioned with COVAX, and even within developing countries, I think the focus is shifting to more rural parts of countries. Here, the challenge is significantly higher, especially when it comes to maintaining, again, an end-to-end cold chain with traceability from the manufacturer till the time the vaccine is administered to, let's say, somebody in a remote village. As Cindy, as you pointed out earlier, so far the vaccines have been always treated as a VIP package, but not in a business as usual context. Again, one of the panelists, Mr. Thakur, pointed out 72 hours. But I think 72 hours is not enough when you look at developing countries, rural regions in an end-to-end logistics context. And here again, you see now we have solutions which can keep the cold chain at an ambient temperature of as high as 45 degrees Celsius for a minimum of 5 days. And I think these will come in more and more into play now. Talking about traceability and the cold chain, I think it's fair to say that the industry has never had so many options when it comes to traceability. Again, here, I think the focus is shifting very quickly from passive monitoring to airline compatible real-time monitoring so that one can react immediately and identify root causes of temperature excursions. The focus today is no longer on simply monitoring. It's more precisely preventing wastage using real-time monitoring, using AI to predictively diagnose failure, irrespective of whether the package is in the air or at plus 40 degrees in a small village in India in the middle of summer. And here I'd like to quote a great example that we have implemented, which is our partnership with Dr. Reddy's for the Sputnik 5 vaccine in India to ensure a fully monitored network across the length and breadth of the country and ensuring zero vaccine wastage. Dr. Ravi Mathur, who spoke on one of the earlier panels, and his team have, at the click of a button, access to the entire status of the vaccine cold chain network across the country. And it literally takes them seconds to confirm that the entire vaccine cold chain has been maintained for the last several weeks, months, or even years as we progress. But I think to kind of summarize from a technology perspective, and I've tried very hard to summarize it in one sentence. I think a solution which integrates airline compatible real-time monitoring with environmentally friendly packaging that can work across different modes of transport, including the last mile, thereby ensuring a seamless end-to-end transportation is the future, and this will be quite disruptive to the industry. And finally, and although I think I do sound like a plagiarist already several times now, but this will not happen without collaboration across different stakeholders in the industry, as well as with the government authorities, airlines, cold chain technology providers, and so on. And I think the good thing about COVID is that it has ensured a multi-stakeholder approach. But I would really like to urge at this forum, and again, it goes in the direction that many other speakers have already spoken on. The key is to ensure that this exists beyond COVID, because a lot of the innovations that have happened will actually have much more impact for temperature sensitive pharmaceuticals in general. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Cindy.
Thank you very much. That's been great. Thanks also, Jessel, for bringing in the topic of sustainability. Right, I think that is something that we all agree that apart from the humanitarian impact and aspect of the COVID-19 crisis, of course, we should not forget about the sustainability impact, right? And that, of course, goes across environmental sustainability, but also, if you like, on the humanitarian aspects, the fair labor, everything, right? Collaboration. So that's a fantastic call out, and I've seen B Medical products, the technology that you were talking about of having visibility across the network of vaccine shipments for Dr. Reddy's, for example, and that's really impressive. So thanks a lot for bringing those insights. Last but definitely not least, thank you, Jessel.
Thank you, Steve.
So with that, we have actually concluded the last session of this track exactly in time. I would say 8 p.m. But of course, I would have loved to take this discussion further and to talk a lot more about this collaboration and how we can take that forward to the future. I think the buzzword of today's session has definitely been collaboration, right? We are all in agreement that collaboration is key and something that needs to continue in every form, right? In sharing of information, especially in light of COVID-19 vaccine, but also definitely throughout the industry going forward. Great insights from the airlines and the airports. What have they done what have they done to get ready for the vaccine distribution? And it's actually encouraging to see that COVID-19 has accelerated a lot of those projects, a lot of investment in infrastructure, getting the hubs ready, but also the outstations, which are critical. Especially when you think about the delivery of the vaccine into the developing countries. Not only that, but also the focus on quality and excellence, right? Joining initiatives as CIV certifications, really emphasizing the quality and the excellence in the networks, in their hubs. So both getting ready from an infrastructure point of view, cold chain capacity, but also having a focus on the people, right? That have to eventually deliver and bring the shipments to the patient. So that's definitely a key takeaway. Initiatives such as Pharma.Aero, I think a great platform, and it's great to see more and more airlines, forwarders, and shippers joining that approach. But it is also very interesting to see how India is definitely seeming to be a key driver of those new initiatives, right? New technologies, new collaborations, vaccine corridors. So hopefully we can leverage that. We can work together in that pharma innovation group. That's a fantastic idea. So I would really like to extend my gratitude to all the panelists today for giving their individual perspectives to the challenge of managing vaccines through airline distribution hubs, bringing their own perspectives in terms of quality, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of all of these initiatives we are taking together. And thanks also, Vilas, for giving us the customer side of things, right? So all of that coming together, I think, has given us a really round and really informative session today around the transportation of vaccines in air freight and air freight hubs. There is, of course, an opportunity to ask questions. Sorry, Miguel, I think you've raised your hand during one of the sessions. I missed it. Is there something you would like to ask or bring to the table still before we close that out here?
No, actually, it was just a mistake while I was opening the chat and closing. So yeah, I didn't.
Worries.
But I take the opportunity to thank you for this great moderation, and Satish and Agility team for this invitation to participate in such great panel. I really enjoyed the discussion, and looking forward to next editions, of course.
Thanks a lot, Miguel. I am still very happy to stay online to go through the questions. I hope the panelists can also stay with me for a little bit longer to go through them. One of the questions that we have is for Jessal, and it's a very interesting question. I think that is something that is very interesting for everyone, be it shipper or be it service provider, which is around using AI, artificial intelligence, to predict failure. And I think I've seen it when we looked at your product a few weeks ago. But maybe you can give a little bit of information around that.
Sure, it's a great question, and I think, of course, there is a lot of work done in simulation itself, which I will not talk about because I think there are more distinguished people to talk about that. But when we use, I was talking primarily about using AI in real life situations. And across the world, we have tens of thousands of loggers communicating information every 10 minutes. And when you sort of look at the data points that you gather from that, I think when you use big data analytics, for example, one of the biggest causes of excursions is people keep the lid open of a box or a freezer or a refrigerator. And using data, you can, what we have been able to do is already analyze the precise impact. So for example, we know that if a box is kept open for 1 minute, the temperature goes from -25 degrees Celsius to -24 degrees Celsius. And so the next time, the temperature increases by a degree, we have the ability to track it because we know the door has been opened. So this is one example where you can use multiple events and correlate them to predictively diagnose not just failures, but also predictively diagnose real life events that keep happening. And at many times, it's been extremely helpful for us to actually go back to the end users and communicate and tell them that this is what you should do or you should not do. And in many cases, the feedback has been overwhelming because, especially in countries like India and many other developing countries, instructions are not always followed precisely. And so we had, to give you another example, we had somebody load in a freezer which was for storing Sputnik vaccine, and they filled it up with ice packs saying, by the time the vaccines come, let us use this storage for something else. And we could, in an hour's time, already diagnose that indeed the freezer had been loaded with something else. And so you saw temperature, and we called them up immediately and said, guys, we know you loaded something. We don't want to know what you've loaded, but you need to unload it because this is a freezer for the Sputnik 5 vaccine. So I think we're seeing a lot of this real life examples across transportation and storage using AI. I hope this answers the question.
I think it's a fantastic answer, right? And I'm sure that this kind of technology will be very much in demand. Looking at the current volatility of the supply chain, right? So so it's very hard to find reliable information in the sense of in the current scenario, especially in ocean freight, for example, where we see an extremely volatile market, but also, as you mentioned, Jessal, right, the complexities in the type of products that we are moving, right? So to have that visibility on where things potentially could go wrong is extremely critical to safeguard the product, to prepare mitigation strategies. So yeah, very, very interesting and fascinating. And I really hope we see more of that coming from B Medical in the future. Satish has been kind enough to answer a lot of the questions on the chat already. I've not seen any new questions coming in so far. I would like to first of all thank the panel, but also maybe to ask you if you want to share with us a few last words on the session today. Anything that you would still like to share, please feel free to do so. Maybe starting off with Julian, if there's anything you would still like to.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. No, I'd just like to also thank everyone. You guys really do a fantastic job with this event, and sadly we can't all be together because it is also good fun when we do. But yeah, thanks for putting this together. You've done a great job hosting it. And no, from my side, I mean, I think honestly most things have been covered. But yeah, I think it's just going to really take. I think it's going to take more collaboration and communication between us all to get through this. And also, the other thing of the big thing, of course, is the world needs to get passengers back in the sky, right? Because that will then hugely affect the capacity for cargo as well. So fingers crossed for that.
I, for one, can't wait to get back on a plane, Julian. Thank you.
Likewise, yeah.
I can get
No
out,
problem,
but
but
can't
thanks
go
again.
back in. So
yeah.
Milton,
Yeah.
maybe if you would like to say a few last words.
Yes, thanks, Cindy. I appreciate that. Again, the key is collaboration. Everybody's been saying it all morning long. Well, morning for me, afternoon for you guys. And I just want to again open it up to the other airports. Manoj, I see here in Thakur. We're really keen on developing pharma lanes. I'm very keen on the Pharma Innovative Group, although I think we need to change the wording because the acronym doesn't sound good for us in English. But
good call out.
But I think it's a great idea. And again, we have an airport leadership here that's very, very keen on investing right now, investing to make things efficient and and effective for everybody. So again, we're interested in and we have a growing, incidentally, we have a growing bio life sciences sector as well. I mentioned we're part of Pharma.Aero, but we're also part of an organization called Bio North Texas, which is supporting startups, and we have a lot of startups in the area, and we're looking to increase pharma manufacturing as well and distribution. The largest pharma distributor in the U.S., McKesson, moved their headquarters just a few miles away from our airport. So again, all these things are lining up. We want to work with you. There's a lot of good things about being in the center of the U.S. and distribution. We have great cold chain, last mile trucking system. The road feeder service is good. So there's a lot of pieces there, and we're happy to bring that all together. And I think someone mentioned this as well before. I just want to add one more thing that might be of interest to everybody. We have great access into Mexico, and we're really being a transit point between Asian markets and South America, deep South America as well. So for those who are interested in exploring the South American market, especially Mexico, which is on our border, we provide really good, efficient access there. I know some of you on the line fly into Mexico already, but not into the northern part of Mexico, which is a one-day truck drive from the airport. So again, happy to work with all you guys. Again, thank you, Cindy and Satish and the Agility team for putting this wonderful event together. Next year, we hope to be with you in India. And again, from the DFW airport and all my colleagues, our heart and prayers are with everybody in India. We support the humanitarian effort, sending a lot of materials your way, but we're with you, and we just hope the best for you guys, and to keep getting better at what we're doing and saving lives. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Milton. Miguel, you want to say something still, or?
Just I want to touch on the last word that was probably highlighted, which is the sustainability. I think that that's something that we all need to look forward to, look at ways to work and live our lives in general in a more sustainable way, and avoid food wastage, avoid wastage of healthcare products that due to wrong handling or temperature excursions. So I think we all have a responsibility in that field, in our different duties. So I believe that sustainability should be a word that is embedded in our daily lives and works moving forward. So that's the last thing I wanted to say. And of course, again, thank you very much for a great session, and looking forward to see you all in person and have some fun, as Julian said. Yeah.
Same here, and absolutely. And I think my colleague Ritu will be talking about sustainability tomorrow as well in relation to cold chain and cold chain packaging. So definitely a topic that we take seriously in agility as well. And Ritu is going to talk about that tomorrow. So thanks a lot, Miguel, again. Khalid?
Yeah, I will also talk about the collaboration and the technology used in the industry. I think we will achieve our targets and things will get back to normal. But of course, the collaboration should remain to keep the industry at the best. So thank you very much for the panel, and Satish and Cindy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khalid, and hopefully we will see you live as well next year in India.
Hopefully.
Manoj, please. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Thanks, Cindy and Satish, for a very well moderation. The entire panelist team is a good mixture of, from the global perspective, from the airline, entire chain of people around who can speak about, contribute to their innovation, their thought process. It was very well drafted. Before I end up, there are two things which I would like to say. We keep our passion retained. That's one part. We learn by mistake. We should act fast. We should take it to the next level and respect each other. I think these four mantras are most important for any success story. And in this success story, whatever we had a challenge. We were distributing our vaccines to the world, and then we started getting stuff from it. So it was a big turnaround of our challenges. The country has gone into a different turmoil. Happy to see that, the whole entire countries all across the globe supported us. We supported by distributing vaccines. We got some medical supplies from all across the world. So thank you very much for all my channel peers who have been doing fantastic support. I can understand it was a great experience for us when we distributed our first vaccine to one country, first midnight, the first vaccine distribution from India, and the journey from there, from that success story to a challenge. And again, we've come up again. So I think it's all about four mantras, which I mentioned. We keep doing that. I think we can get away with any challenge in the future as well.
Amen to that. Thank you, Manoj. Thakur?
Thanks, Andy. I think it was a very wonderful session and a lot of insights which have come in. And as a collaborative approach, I think a lot of things which have now come out as a pharma innovation, I think that was a very interesting, the topic where we all collaborate and see that how we go to the next level. So I think once again, I thank Mr. Satish and Agility and all the panel members. Once again, thank you. I think it was a wonderful session. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, and thank you for your contribution. Very, very valuable. And last but not least, Vilas?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Sandy. Just one point here to highlight, what I can say is, as a pharmaceutical company, we are doing a lot of temperature-sensitive shipments over the years. And what I can see in past, not past 1 year, maybe from January, this temperature sensitive vaccination shipments have been an alert to all those levels at the ground level of handling how important that temperature sensitive is, because otherwise we need to have a dialogue with all those that this is temperature sensitive, please take care, please take care. And now people are all aware of this product, so that's great, and that's helped us a lot in moving other pharmaceutical products. So that's good. And once again, thank you, Cindy and Satish, for organizing this. Thanks.
Very welcome, and thank you for participating. That's really appreciated, and the contribution valuable as always. Of course, we will not close this session out before Mr. Satish has given his blessing and his last words on this track.
I think I'll thank once again on behalf of UBCC 2021 all the panelists for taking out your valuable time. Like what Tushar said earlier, it's amazing learning from every panel discussion. Even today, while I was making the notes, I think the new mantra is innovation, and UBCC will have to innovate now further for all of you to reach into India next year. And we've also been able to go truly global this time. We could manage to get Milton Jessel, Miguel with a new banner on his screen now. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much. Julian doesn't need any thank you because he's now become the DNA of UBCC completely. And he's been there from the first event. So I think, Hamid, you are the new entrant as well to our effort to give patient safety a larger focus. So thank you so much, and I'll hand it over now, Cindy, officially to Karvi, who's waiting to do the last bit of.
Yes, thank you, Satish, and again,
thank you guys,
yeah.
Really appreciate it.
And thanks everyone for staying on a bit longer. And before we hand over to Karvi, I'm sorry, I will not keep you waiting any longer, but I also want to take a moment to thank Sanika and Mayur, who've been very much in the background here today, but of course are the driving force behind all of the organization, right? So big shout out to Sanika and to Mayur for supporting us on this. Karvi, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Cindy, and thank you everyone for this thought-provoking session. The panelists very well established the important and crucial role played by the aviation industry in enabling and carrying out this mission of the century, as we're calling it, the transportation of the vaccine across the globe. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the speakers for such an enlightening experience. And I'm sure our audiences had a lot to take home from this session today. Also, a very special thanks to you, Ms. Cindy, who conducted this session with passion and poise. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. A big thank you to all our speakers who joined in today and took out time from their busy schedules. And also thank you to our audiences for joining in our virtual discussions. A special thanks to our partners, Logistics Insiders, Emirates Sky Cargo, Qatar Airways Cargo, GMR Cargo, Cargo Service Center, Kempegowda International Airport, Bangalore, DFW International Airport, Adani, SkyCell, Delhi International Airport, Vecutech, Del Monte, Celebi, Gupta Cold Storage, Novotel, ISCM, ITLN, and Cargo Top. Thank you all the partners. Without you, this event would have not been possible. We will be continuing this virtual delight tomorrow and bring you more insightful and brainstorming sessions only on Unbroken Cold Chain 2021. So until then, goodbye, take care, and I hope to see you all here tomorrow at the same time. Thank you, everyone.